if there's one thing we can all agree on, we can all come together on it.
I don't think that's a controversial statement. He's probably one of those Reddit comments that was talking about me, you know, because this guy really is clueless.
Jeez.
But yeah, I don't know. I just everything I heard about them internally, I love their comp. I really think the comp that's on screen right now, I think it's so broken.
Just the meta.
I think so, but it never wins.
I mean, mate, like, how did they lose maps to France? Like,
yeah, I don't know. It has to be choking, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Like, they don't realize that the people in groups didn't have hands. Like, half of Team Australia, no offense to my boys, but it's like you load in and you look across stage at Team Australia and it's like, wait, are they wearing blindfolds? And it's like, this might be a winnable match, you know? Like,
well, the good news is none of it was my fault. Let's move on.
Yeah, good conclusion. Onwards and upwards.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Uncoachable. A little bit later than we wanted, but we're all back in our respective countries, except for Chris, who has defected to Korea. But he defected to Korea for love, which I think we can all agree is about as good a reason as any. And really, if there's one thing the Overwatch World Cup is about, it's about love. The love of one's country, the love of good Overwatch, the newfound love between Canada and Brazil, the love of leaving 1,800 comments in response to Cloudy's tweets. I think there's been a lot of love to go around this last sort of weekend for the tournament, and we all got to experience it firsthand. Not all of the Canada-Brazil stuff firsthand, that was maybe secondhand, but that's probably for the best. But we got to experience a lot of it, and I think we should just start with the whole tournament. Are we happy with the event? Did we enjoy it? Did we have a nice time?
Well, yeah, minus one specific moment. It was a pretty fun event. There was maybe a 1 hour period on one of the days which I didn't enjoy, but the rest of it was good fun. I think I was thinking this the other day, and I was thinking people don't necessarily talk about it as much, but is this the biggest upset of an international tournament ever? Like, obviously with hindsight, how the meta played out, it's like, oh yeah, Saudi were the best team, and it wasn't like an upset, but I feel like if you'd gone into it and said, like, especially if you said 6 months ago that Saudi Arabia would beat like Korea, China, USA, you would say no way, right? But they did, and they ultimately looked like they were the best team. So has there been a bigger upset?
Maybe not, to be honest.
Not in the World Cup for sure, right?
Overwatch League, never, right? Like, it's always just the best team that wins it. Like, come
London
playoff.
Spitfire season 1, right? Is that maybe the biggest upset in some ways? Because nobody saw them winning.
I mean, that's so long ago. It's like also the power rankings at that point.
That roster was no underdog element to it. That roster was unbelievably stacked. They were just like shit for the whole season, you know. So even that. So unless there's like some like Apex tournament back in the day, which I don't remember, at least in recent history, with hindsight, maybe it was the biggest upset that I can remember. At least in terms of the team that won the tournament, you know.
Well, yeah, I think even though like we were pretty keen on Saudi, we thought they'd be one of the better teams at the event and do well. I don't think any of us really had them pegged for winning the entire tournament. Yeah,
I feel like Saudi and even like Finland to a lesser extent, you know, because they were just like players where basically nobody was in Overwatch League. Let's ignore Majed for a second. But basically because nobody was in Overwatch League, you know, everyone kind of forgets about these people. But it's like, oh shit, Vestola might be, you know, one of the top Sigmas in the whole world, you know. Saudi, like Team Saudi just has a bunch of people that could have been in Overwatch League, but, you know, weren't joining for different reasons. So there's just like this EU hyperbolic time chamber taking place where everyone is grinding this super meta comp and everyone is really good at these specific heroes. And everyone just forgets about it, you know? People are like, oh, who's going to win this year? USA or Korea? Maybe China's got a shot, and that's it. You know, people just forget the poor Euro nations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as well, what was quite interesting is it actually did super well as an event as well. Maybe it helped that, like, it had probably one of the greatest days of Overwatch ever on that grand finals day when it was just four best of fives back to back. But the viewership got super boosted. I've got the viewership numbers, which is pretty good viewing. 318k peak viewers, 130k peak. And no surprise to see that all of the finals games are at the top. And actually, at the top of those are all the Saudi Arabia games. especially the Cloudy Derby, the Finland v Saudi Arabia game, right at the top as the most popular game of the event. But these numbers are actually really good, because I thought, these numbers didn't mean a lot to me on their own, but when I looked at like the Overwatch League numbers, which you would presume would be better, but they're not better. It's actually the World Cup that has really done a lot better, both in terms of average viewership and peak viewership, than the playoffs did.
Yeah. I think it's because, like, with the World Cup, you know, like, every country just gets drawn into the event. Like, even if you don't watch Overwatch, you wind up watching one of these, like, super accessible co-streams on YouTube, on Twitch or whatever it may be. Whereas for Overwatch League, you know, they can do a couple of weeks of trying to promote the discoverability of the event, but nobody gives a shit still. And, you know, unless you're from fucking Toronto or something, so you really desperately want to watch the Toronto Defiant get their shit ran in the online play-ins, like, nobody's watching that stuff. So, you know, World Cup just has a way of dragging everyone in all the time. And the promotion was probably even bigger than World Cup playoffs.
Yeah, well, historically, it's always been... I'm sure if you go back into time and find the World Cups from 2017, 2018, I'm sure they peaked at, like, millions of viewers back in the day. Like, I feel like Overwatch's all-time biggest events have always been World Cup events, which is exactly what, like, Max is saying, you know? Like, it's, like, people just coming in, like, cheer for their country. I think that the concept of it is obviously... Yeah, it's obviously spot on, and then obviously helped by Twitch and co-streams and kind of everything being allowed to let go. So obviously we're in a time now where, like, the future of Overwatch is unsure, but I think that these viewership numbers at least will probably provide some optimism for whatever does come in the future.
I think it certainly shows there is still a viewership there, and I think the co-stream model is probably the most interesting bit, because there was so many more co-streams, I feel like, in this event compared to for Overwatch League playoffs and stuff, and they all did pretty well, whether it was like the local language ones essentially, or just like the standard big ones. Like, I know Haddy did quite a lot, and Cloudy and stuff as well.
I think Yizna was getting 60k viewers during some of the Saudi games live, 60,000 just on history, which is absolutely ridiculous numbers for an Overwatch co-stream. So yeah, I think, I mean, obviously Overwatch League had, like, co-streams, but you had to do it on YouTube and you had to have, like, a specific thing, and, like, they only accepted certain people. So they basically, I mean, I remember you did a co-stream, right, Max, for LA Gladiators, and you probably got, like, five viewers, and you had to remove the VOD, and there was so many restrictions with how you were allowed to do a co-stream, especially considering they were mandatory, that effectively there was no co-streams for it, you know?
Yeah, it felt like the people mandating that we do a co-stream didn't even understand why people watch co-streams, you know? It's like people watch a co-stream so that they can get, like, informal fun out of it, and instead they just put, like, ridiculous restrictions on it and then delete the VOD and make it all complete rubbish off spawn. So not really sure what they were cooking with a mandatory co-stream thing, but, you know, maybe they were just trying to check a box so that we can call it, you know, pretend that the Overwatch League was producing content.
Yeah.
Well, I think the World Cup sets itself up quite nicely for that type of content as well, because you watch Cloudy or you're tuning into those streams, you're 100% certain you're going to get a real biased commentary and assessment of what's going on. But that's what you want if you are Finnish, or if you're Saudi Arabian, or if you just want to see the fucking drama unfold. I think it suits itself a lot more, whereas, like, how many people are really turning up a co-stream and being like, this is a die-hard Boston fans only co-stream. We hate everyone who's not Boston, and we're going to get in a fight with everyone.
Yeah. There's definitely, evidently by Cloudy's Twitter thread, there is obviously a lot more. Is nationalism the right word, or is it a racist word? Like, if you're nationalistic, are you racist, or do you just love your country? Or does it depend on which country you're nationalistic for?
I think it's probably a normal term that now has more recently been, like, used to describe loving your country in a negative fashion.
Okay.
Like,
so patriotism, that's the word.
Patriotism.
That's the correct word.
Yeah, no, nationalism is like, you know, it's got, like, some sort of toxic connotation, but, you know, patriotism, it's like, you know, hand on the Bible or whatever.
That's it. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so there's clearly a lot of patriotism, nationalism, for each team's respective country, which I think ultimately is a good thing. You know, like football, it's, like, unbelievably tribal with the way people support teams, but I suspect it's also a factor in why viewership and interaction for the product is so big. So yeah.
Well, obviously, it became a bit of a big deal that Cloudy was getting so many responses to his tweets, and I guess most of them probably from Saudi Arabian fans who were pretty happy about the Saudi Arabia win. But also, if you look at any traditional sport, like any football player's Twitter account, do you not think if they post a tweet after they've just made a crucial mistake in a big game, that they didn't get absolutely slammed on Twitter by everyone who has an account who's just like, you're fucking shit, mate. What were you thinking? What are you doing? It's the same thing. In some ways, it's actually maybe to say
a good
is
thing.
What we want. Yeah, like maybe what we want isn't quite the right terminology for it, but it's
there
not.
We go. This man wants a job in the Saudi league. If any Saudi fans are watching, X supports the hate comments. He thinks positive. Keep it going.
Yeah, the only
In
thing
fact,
if you want a good comments, get that man a job. Immediately.
We are trying to boost our interactions on this. So leave those hate comments in the comment section below. It will boost the algorithm. Obviously, for X, it will be all love because he absolutely loves sending players death threats and abuse. I think that's what he just said.
Sent half of it myself.
For us, just all the comments down below. It doesn't matter what language. Just we'll keep boosting it. You know?
Just full send in the comments. It's all love, fellas.
That's it. We can take it.
I mean, in Cloudy's defense, Cloudy made what can only be the smartest business move I've ever seen from an Overwatch player, and signed up to Twitter Blue so he would get money back for all the interactions. So it's, in some ways, it's a real big win-win. Everyone gets to hate him. He gets a paycheck. Everyone's happy. It's like WWE.
That's it, yeah. And especially CommanderX, the happiest out of everyone with how he's gone down.
Soon to be employed for advocating for death threats, you know? Go.
Some people deserve death threats, and Cloudy might be one of them.
I think Cloudy's one of them, personally. I think he's played a
if
few
there's one thing we can all agree on, we can all come together on it.
I don't think that's a controversial statement.
All right, should we get into the meat and potatoes of the actual tournament and which teams did well, which teams fucked it up? I think.
Can we start with USA?
Yeah, we can start with USA. I think we should skip out all the group stage teams because I think no one got eliminated who wasn't expected to be eliminated. Sorry, Max.
The massive upset of Australia going out in groups. Like, come on, you're just gonna brush over that?
Go on, then. Talk us through it. Talk us through it, Max. What happened? Where did it all fall apart?
We got our shit round. Like, they shoot back more than we shoot back. I remember we played UK. It was our first real match because, you know, our first one was Brazil. But our first real match we played UK, and it's like, you know, it's 99-99 twice over on Busan. And it's like we finished we're halfway through the second round, and Kai is just 24-0. Like he's just standing still, railing people, and he's 24-0. It's like I don't know. Someone's got to. We didn't shoot back enough, I guess is the takeaway here. Because if Kai can just stand still and kill absolutely everyone in the universe. I remember seeing, like, from the player POV, he was just looping around the entire map, killing players one by one by one. And I can hear the comms, and it's like no one's mentioning the Sojin just going for a fucking stroll around the entire map, claiming people like the fucking Grim Reaper, like your number's up, your number's up, your number's up. And it was like, we probably haven't got this in the bag, to be perfectly honest. But, you know, that was Australia's group stage in a nutshell. One person on the enemy team shot back a little, and it was all over.
All right, let's hit the big dogs then. The USA. So in our preview show, we even gassed USA up to the degree that we thought they could win the whole thing. And it's fair to say, almost the opposite of that happened. They lost to Saudi in groups, finishing second, putting them on the worst side of a bracket. But it maybe did what everyone presumed would have been the worst side of a bracket. And then they just really bottomed out to China.
Yeah, because USA is the most interesting team because obviously we were relatively high in them. I don't think any of us had them to win, but I think within a few days of landing in BlizzCon, my team to win the whole tournament was USA by a country mile. I felt that from what I'd seen / heard in scrims, they were the best team. Like, I think maybe you can talk to this more, Max, but I heard they dominated Korea, dominated China, had success versus almost everyone. And then obviously they lost to Saudi and they made a roster change. And from what I heard, their scrim results went better to the point where I remember them telling me that they scrimmed like Saudi Arabia and they had to call it early because Saudi played an entire Flashpoint map and couldn't get a single kill. It was like so one-sided. So I think you said something similar about Toronto in the regular season where like we maybe felt like actually their comp and their meta read was maybe optimal in terms of this double flex, this Bapalari when played well is the best comp. But it seems like for whatever reason, when you then have to go and play that comp in official, I don't know if it's because obviously there's a big overlap between USA and Toronto in terms of the players. I don't know how much of it is just a consistent choking issue versus maybe this comp requires less pressure of scrims to be able to play. But yeah, I mean, you can confirm it, but I feel like their scrim results were insane, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think their scrim results are really good, but like the only team that was actually able to win anything on dive, like Korea couldn't do it this year. The only team that could win anything on dive was China, because Guxue is just like a million times better at Doom, and I feel like Leave's better than Sparkle too. So like the two, they were just China was a better dive team this year. So them beating China in scrims when China's playing dive, that's pretty understandable, to be honest, because China's kind of like a famously terrible scrim team. Like really, everyone knows that those guys are just dog shit in scrims and then they show up to the matches. But I honestly think that like the making Super their main tank thing, I think it happened at the wrong time, you know? Like, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think that having Super in for the Saudi game, they would have had a higher chance of winning. And then having Collusion for the China game, they would have had a higher chance of winning. Because I think playing this Sigma shit first dive, it's like significantly more important that you have like a really mechanically skilled player on the Sigma, because you need to hit shit, you know, you like constantly need to hit small things that are like flying around, you know, like there's a Genji that's dashing around all over the place, like really like thin margins for getting the kills versus them just face fucking you, you know? Whereas when they're playing like the Mirror versus Saudi, when there was like a Mei, Bastion, Sigma, when it's way slower, you need like way less mechanical skill, I'd say. Like you're shooting at a bunch of things that are fucking slow and standing still. And then having like really good macro, really good like push-pull, playing off your Sigma shift and his shield timings and like getting everything working that way. So I think it's way easier to play Sigma if you communicate in the Mirror. But then versus dive, you need someone like Kalush who's actually going to kill everything. So I think they like double trolled themselves, you know, like they played the macro guy for the mechanical matchup and they played the mechanical guy for the macro matchup. Like they just did the exact opposite of what they needed to do to win, which is just a classic Coach Gator blunder, IMO. But I don't know if you guys actually agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It wasn't his decision though, was it?
Yeah.
What I heard was Kalush asked to be taken out.
I mean, I was talking to Kalush, and it's like he wanted to play, but he's also a bit of a cuck, you know. Like he's like, oh, I'm playing bad, I'm mental blocked. So it's like he won't force himself in, but like if you tell him to play, he'll play. If you tell him he's benched, he's benched. I feel like he's not someone that's gonna like force himself onto or off the roster.
Well, the rumor was it, and I think Super said this on stream, so I don't even think it's an Uncoachable exclusive, but Kalush decided like the 2 weeks before the event to go on an ungodly cut where he was basically only eating 200 calories of salad every single day. And presumably, because Kalush is a big boy, 200 calories, maybe it's probably more than 200 calories, but only salad every day presumably has some sort of negative effect on the body's ability to use brainwaves. And you have to think, considering the Overwatch League is about to die, you have a really good cutting window just after BlizzCon. There is like an unbelievable time where you can do an ungodly cut and not have to pay the price for it. But it seemed like, as always the case with these gym guys, that when it's time to cut, it's time to cut, and everything else that happens in life is secondary. I don't know. My feeling is that if Kalush could play this best level, he was just better against both. Actually, right? Like. I think we had a lot of discussions. I agree with that, I guess. Yeah, like on Team UK, we had discussions, and like there was maybe Cronus was saying that he thinks KC is better than Kalush, but almost everyone else was like, no, you're crazy. Like Kalush on Sigma is genuinely like the best in the world, and I think that like anyone who's scrimmed that team sees his damage numbers are always just like unnecessarily high every time he plays the hero. But obviously, if he's not in the right frame of mind and has no confidence, then maybe he can't play, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, people were blaming him heaps after the Saudi loss, but it's like from watching the match, it's like he missed a flux on broadcast, and then KSA missed that same flux. Like,
They
like 20 seconds later, KSA...
They won that fight, he missed for flux. Like, it actually didn't impact the result of the series of a map at all. And
it felt like Kaluj was consistently doing a bit more damage than KSA, too, throughout the whole series. I don't know if that's delusional or not. I thought at least for map 1 that was happening. So it didn't even seem like Kaluj was really the problem.
The series itself was pretty close too, right? Like, it was 2-0, but it was like the first map could have 100% went either way. Even the second one, it looked like they would, like, USA were going to full hold them for a certain amount of time. Like, I don't think it was like, it was a best of 3, which anything can happen, and it was pretty close. But I think sometimes, I agree. I don't think Kaluj was necessarily like I don't think there was any massive problems with the US's game versus Saudi Arabia, except they just lost in the end.
When I watched it back, I left thinking the bigger problem when I was watching the USA game wasn't that anyone's massively beefing or anything's going wrong. Like, there's a couple of missed ults here, but you watch any series of Overwatch, someone's going to fuck up a couple of ults and not get the value they want. But the biggest problem was, like, I think it was Samoa... What's the beach one? Beach. But it's literally the beach.
Incredible.
But I was like, well, Saudi Arabia just have a better understanding of how the map works. Like, they're using this part of the map, and USA are all just standing on one choke. Same on Volcano. USA all just stand on the same choke, and they end up losing it. And when I watched Blizzard World Second, again, USA seemed like they have no idea how to attack Blizzard World Second. Like, they don't have a plan. Like, first point, they have a big plan. They set up a big flank, and they just win the fight immediately. Second point, they have no plan. And they just keep trying to go through lower, and they just die every single time. And I was like, well, this looks more like a team problem or like a coaching problem than it does anyone playing badly. And Saudi Arabia just had a better answer to these map-specific problems than they did.
Well, do you think that, I don't know if this is another hot take, but do you think that USA was actually just like significantly disadvantaged with the quality of practice that they got compared to Saudi? Like, do you think that EU teams were better practiced than what US had on offer, at least pre-tournament? Because, like, Saudi's been scrimming together for like the longest of times, and they can scrim like Finland and stuff like that, right? It was actually another competent Sigma team. Who's the other competent Sigma team in US?
I think one benefit Europe had was like the teams like Saudi and Finland probably had like, I think there was maybe four like Canada, US, UK, Korea, and China. We all had to wait for Overwatch League grand finals. I guess I don't know if Canada needed to, but most of us needed to wait for grand finals to be done before we could scrim, because people still had, like, we had Backbone playing in it. US had RuPaul playing in it, presumably. Well, definitely played in it. I think I remember him. I think he won it.
I'm pretty sure he was in it, yeah.
He might have, yeah.
Korea had pretty much their entire team. China had their entire team. So those 4 teams, obviously China had the advantage of being actually having 2 years of scrims together. So that for them, it wasn't quite as big an issue. They were able to scrim World Cup at Overwatch League, which is a crazy advantage.
Real head start, yeah.
And then, I think ultimately there's two factors which went into it, which I'm sure we'll talk about more later, is EU, probably had the right meta read. Obviously, Korea and China be able to scrim each other, especially because they could also scrim someone like a great team like Australia, right? So they had like all of the big dogs there. But they probably read that, well, I think they definitely read the meta wrong. And then, like you said, there was probably a higher overall level. We felt the same in qualifiers, right? Like, for us to get through our qualification group, we looked like the only team who had to play against like real teams, whereas almost every other team to get to the World Cup just had to beat teams which they had no way to really lose to. So I definitely think that Europe had an advantage in terms of we were playing the right comps, and we had higher levels of teams, maybe combined with extra practice time for certain teams too.
Yeah. When I think what happens as well from like an internal point of view is there's like 2 ways to approach trying to solve a map. Either you do, and this is what we started doing on London, where we just like, here's how we attack Blizzard World. Here's how we attack first point. Here's a backup plan. Here's how we attack the first part of second, the second part of second. But sometimes, and the reason we started doing this is because what would happen sometimes is you'd be scrimming a map. Let's say you scrim Route 66, and you just always cap first point for whatever reason. You've never gone over a plan with the guys, and it just sort of works. And then it comes to the match day, and someone has a proper hold, and it just fucks you, and you realise, we actually had no soul for Route first. I imagine what happened to USA, just a guess, but a lot of the time when they're just playing against Canada or some of the collegiate teams, they can just walk in against these teams and they walk through the choke and then they win the fight because they are 5 better players than the other 5 players. But then when they play against Saudi Arabia, suddenly there's a team with a proper hold that makes sense. The players are maybe even a little bit higher quality as well, and it just falls apart. So suddenly you just get exposed for not having a proper way to attack Blizzard World Second or retake Volcano or whatever it is.
Yeah, maybe to actually counter that, did US not make an internal team to scrim a lot against? Like they got like a lot of their reserves. Like I think like OG obviously who got promoted, but like Sam was playing for that team. Also they scrimmed Northwood a lot, which was I think actually pretty high quality team. Like in fact like beating US a lot from what I heard. So it's possible that actually USA got pretty good practice, but maybe most of the practice was that NA meta of like the double flex stuff, and what they I guess needed was more dive or against the Lucio Sigma version.
So I guess that's where they ultimately came unstuck, really, against this version rather than a double flex version. Because I remember Landon saying they scrimmed them a lot, right? And he was talking about Landon and Vega being the backline and Vega being so good at Alari, which means they were playing Bap-Alari mirrors.
Yeah, right.
And then they did well against China and Korea, but presumably against China and Korea playing dive.
Yeah,
so maybe all their scrim results are actually just the matchups they just didn't really get until it was too late and they were stuck in changing the roster and changing the players in time for China.
Yeah, even then though, it was China that knocked them out, and they only lost one map, which was Samoa to the Lucio comp. Well, I suppose they also dropped a map to France playing the same stuff, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like the more I think about it, the less excuses I can find for USA, considering the actual level that they were genuinely at the tournament were, you know. Like, we'll talk about Korea, obviously, but one thing I think everybody felt is when Korea arrived to BlizzCon, everyone that I spoke to was like, they're not that good. Like, everyone felt their level was... I think everyone knew the second they scrimmed Korea for the first time, I don't think this team's going to win the World Cup. Whereas everyone you spoke to, I remember telling Uber before they went out and to play against China, I said to him, don't worry, this is a USA 3-0. He's like, oh, really? And then they got smashed 3-0. Uber's probably, I know Uber watches the podcast, and he's probably thinking, what the fuck is this guy? He's probably one of those Reddit comments that was talking about me. You know, he's like, this guy really is clueless.
Jeez.
But yeah, I don't know. Everything I heard about them internally, I love their comp. I really think the comp that's on screen right now, I think it's so broken.
It's just the meta.
I think so, but it never wins.
I mean, mate, like, how did they lose maps to France? Like,
yeah, I don't know. It has to be choking, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think, yeah, when you lose maps you don't expect to, and then half the players on the team and half the coaches say, yeah, we're underperforming, we're choking. It might be choking.
Yeah, it actually could. Maybe that's just
it's these goddamn American Tornado players, dude. Like, they are actually no good in the clutch. Like, it doesn't matter how many opportunities you give them, how many perfect metas they get, they will go out in play-ins consistently.
That's why when World War III eventually does happen, China versus US has no chance because the Chinese can perform under pressure, whereas the US they can't handle it. So
I don't know. Next World War, I'm siding with Saudi or China. You know, like, these are my options.
Joe Biden, I know you watch. Just hold off on World War III for now. I don't think you guys got it until you get at least a new generation of kids on the block.
We'll do a bracket in our next podcast for like a World War III prediction. Yeah. So yeah, hugely disappointing for the USA. Is there much more to say about it? Because obviously they bomb out in quarters to Team China, so their tournament's actually over really quickly as well.
That's it. 4 games, 1-2, lost to both of the grand finalists, but I think the China game especially wasn't close enough to really for them to make too many arguments. Like, my instinct says that they would beat a lot of the other teams in the tournament. Like, if US played UK, I don't really see a way we would have beaten them based on how they demolished us in scrims. But I mean, like you said, if China always notorious for underperforming in scrims but playing when it matters in officials, then I suppose you could argue pretty easily that that's the main thing. Really hard to make an argument the opposite, really.
Like, maybe USA could have made it through, like, you know, like a Finland bracket, you know, like they go UK into Finland and then they get deep into the bracket that way. But even then, Finland seemed pretty solid, like really solid, actually. So,
to be fair, the comp Finland actually struggled the most into was when Saudi Arabia played for double flex support with Lubda and Majed both in. So actually, maybe the USA would have matched up super nicely to Finland. And actually, losing to Saudi, because obviously that is the one that sent them over onto what would eventually be known as the strong side of the bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, yeah, if they'd avoided that, they could have maybe just gone, yeah, Spain into Finland, and then maybe they get into grand finals, and maybe they still lose, but it's not like as big a deal, you know, or as big a failure.
Yeah.
I guess maybe the last thing to say is this obviously really doesn't help Gator at all.
No.
In terms of battling fraud allegations after now he's sort of had pretty terrible results with both teams this year.
He's the American lip, I would call it.
The American lip.
Wait, isn't he that bloke that didn't touch the point? What?
He is. I asked him, I said to him,
Did he
we
say
had the same PTA. So I spoke to Lip and I said, hey, Lip, like, what happened? Like, so Vrasa, did you give up? And he goes, yeah, maybe.
He's trying to save face, mate. Yeah. No, Gators wind up with a pretty terrible track record at the end of this year of just like having overwhelming favorite rosters and just coming 8th repeatedly. So, you know.
Yeah.
Calling it the lip effect, actually.
The lip effect, yeah. He just can't stop lipping. Even last year, dude, lip comes 12th.
Well, that's it, dude. Lip, like... that's just it. When it, you know, you heard of Gushway at Anaheim, Lip at Anaheim is somehow simultaneously never the problem, but never the winner either.
Yeah, he's addicted to doing really well in Anaheim, but just still getting his shit ran every single time.
All right, I think we should chalk off, while we're in North America, let's chalk off some of, I guess, the other teams in quarterfinals. Now, maybe kind of just got as far as we thought they would, and then it was over, which is Spain and Canada. So I think Spain losing to Saudi Arabia seems actually painfully obvious in hindsight. It probably even seemed obvious beforehand whenever we played them. Saudi Arabia always seemed stronger than Spain. It was a clean 3-0, probably not that close at all. Canada probably very much in the same boat. Got some of the Canada highlights here, which is probably the only talking point. Is that Canada got really screwed, not in terms of they had to play South Korea, but they also got screwed in terms of nobody got to see them get screwed. Is this Seeker? I think this is Seeker, right?
Oh.
I thought that was noxious, to be honest.
So yeah,
if you look really closely, you can see the reflection of Lip running a train on Team Canada in the background.
So for context of this, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be fair, I would say that actually you could make an argument that Spain were the biggest one of the biggest overperformers of the whole World Cup in terms of probably no one expected them to qualify through the group, especially when like Denmark were in their group. So the fact that they finished second in group and then second in the BlizzCon group to get out, actually for that roster, Spain did really well. So I think Spain, special shout out to them. Obviously, yeah, once it got to the really big boys, it was probably just like a little bit too far, but also they can be pretty happy with it. Canada, yeah, I think people were overrating them a little bit going in. Like when we ended up playing them, I didn't necessarily super like fear them. I think Blizzard obviously respected them by assuming they were going to get upgrade. So it was almost a good take from Blizzard. They were close. And if they'd known New Queen Street was going to be as dominant as it was off screen, they could have held this guy and said, chill out 5 minutes, we'll finish this.
Whereas it does seem amazing. Saved face for Canada by hiding that New Queen Street from public view.
Maybe. Yeah, it seems unbelievable they couldn't just leave. Why couldn't they just leave the not the play Overwatch, like the Overwatch Contenders Twitch channel on the game? Like, I don't know. I don't know why
there's just one broadcast for the whole event, mate. Like that was just how it was, you know?
Well, because I was in the arena at the time, because I'm not allowed in the private area because I'm obviously too high a risk. But I was in the arena at the time where the players are sitting, and they changed there's no way to watch the game, even when we're literally there 20 feet from the players playing on stage. There's no way to see. I mean, we could see a bit of lip screen, so we could kind of see like, oh, it looks like someone's about to full cap, probably South Korea. But we couldn't, no way to actually watch the game in the arena at BlizzCon, which you think, if you are in Anaheim at the BlizzCon arena to watch the World Cup, that's the best place in the world to possibly be to watch the Overwatch World Cup. But that wasn't true. And I guess what really tipped it off was these speeches all involving phrases like, it's all about the players. We care so much about the players. Not these 10 players, but all the other players we really care about and we really respect, and we want to put them at the forefront of our thinking.
the big mistake clearly was Blizzard overestimating Team UK's ability. And if they'd realised the true skill level of
us on first.
And especially their coaching, they should have just shoved them on, and we would have got to see all of the World Cup.
Should we approach the elephant in the room then?
We can.
Move on to we've covered one team who massively underperformed in the USA, but there was another team that people were quite hot on coming into the tournament. That
especially us.
Yeah, everything went really well in group stage. Everything on point, didn't drop a map. What could possibly go wrong? Got the perfect side of a bracket. Maybe even an easier side of a bracket since Saudi did us a favour and sent USA to the other side. What could go wrong? But then it all went wrong.
It did.
Do you want the outside perspective, or are you just going to go straight in on all of it?
Yeah, go on. You tell us what you thought from the outside, and then I'll.
I mean, I thought you guys were just totally fucked. To be honest, like you've got two main supports and a Winston one trick. So like, I thought you guys looked like the most beatable team in the group. To be honest, you know, like
more than Brazil.
Maybe forget about Brazil. They're not a team in the group. They were cosmetic, but you know, like you guys have got you've got Great Britain gameplay on right now, and I remember watching this and just thinking, Jesus fucking Christ! It's like JK just walks in, presses both of his buttons, and dies 4 seconds later, like on repeat. And the casters are like, JK is tanking this damage. He's just not following up, and it's like, brother, my brother in Christ, like if this guy could get more than one shift at EOF, like maybe there would be the slightest chance.
Well, for me.
People are cooking the coaching. They're putting the coaching staff on the fucking coals. Like, what were the coaches doing? It's like, what do you mean, bro? Like, they were just trying. Like, JK on Sigma, you think it's going to be any better, bro? Like, the Jigma was not out of this world, bro. And you can't play Jinston in this tournament either. So it's just like, you guys were just totally fucked. Like, you had no BAP player. Like, you've got a DPS player on BAP because you've got two main supports. You got two main supports and two tanks that have one hero that they can play between the two of them. So it was like you guys were totally fucked. And I think that, you know, like maybe you could have picked someone else from your like local region. Like maybe your team was fucked in the roster construction phase, but I don't actually know the UK scene enough to be like, oh yeah, you could have picked this guy instead. So from the outside, like it wasn't a problem of like coaching or anything like that. Like it was just, you know, you got as far as you could with the talent that the country has.
Yeah,
my
feeling is that like the roster we had, we should do better. Like I think there is definitely like a disappointment. But yeah, I think I'll disagree with you that JK was using one shift per fight because from my POV wasn't quite getting the first one off before getting rocked and dying in about the situation. But yeah, I think that like in terms of the strategy, like I think that the way that like if you go way back, like the way I look at it is Overwatch is like a forest, okay? And you get a certain amount of water, and the amount of water is the amount of scrim time you get. And what you have to do is
draw this.
Yeah, you can. What you have to try and do is you have to make a decision. Do I want to get one really tall, this is very phallic, one very, very tall tree, or do I want to try and get like a few trees in the forest and I can pick which tree I use for this hypothetical tree competition? And if you look at like London, we were the tallest tree out there. We had one fucking comp. We invested all of our water, which was thousands of hours of practice time, onto Reinhardt. Florida, who ended up winning the Overwatch League, they were the opposite, right? They effectively tried to build as many trees as possible, and they never mirrored trees, and they just played to fucking counter. I don't know why trees is the example. Presumably there is a better way to describe this, but that's the idea. So when I was building like the roster and the strategy, the way I looked at it was this. If I want, like, do I have like a one comp, which if we all are on our best heroes, like on London, right? The comp is so obvious in terms of
the graphics not helping at all, dude. Like,
yeah, it's just a forest, right?
Like, this is Florida, right? I mean, this is London.
No, this
right?
is London. Is one tree.
London only has one tree, dude. Like, what are the
there's
other
no other trees on London.
Dive?
Like, just deforestation.
Yeah, deforestation.
It's just one big fucking tree, and we hope that the tree is good. And with UK, it was like, well, if I want to get the most out of JK, I need to play some sort of dive comp. If I want to get the most out of Jamie, then I probably need to play some sort of brawl comp, maybe Astro too. So it didn't feel like everyone could play one comp the same way that like Haddy, Jamie, Landon could all play their comp, right? So what my logic was, I'm going to build 2 trees. I'm going to build a dive tree and I'm going to build a Sigma tree. And my idea is, based off the fact that I heard that Korea and China were playing dive, when we played against the dive teams, I was going to play Sigma, and when we played against the EU Sigma teams, I was going to play dive. That was the logic going into it. Obviously, what ended up happening was when we got to the event, we lost so much confidence in our dive tree to the point where it just felt like it wasn't going to work. So when we got put on the side of the bracket as the Sigma teams, we were already so much further behind. Like our Sigma tree was so much smaller than theirs because maybe they had better like suited players for it, or they just had way more scrim time on it, right? Like if you look at Finland were a 1 tree team, right? Every single drop of water went into the Lucio Sigma mirror comp. Like obviously teams like Saudi maybe were like 80% on the Lucio, but they saved 20% of their water for this smaller double flex tree, which has ended up what beat Finland, the fact that they could play a different comp and Finland couldn't, right? So that was our idea. So then when it comes to the game again, like the group stages, we just felt we're probably just better that we can just use whatever tree that we want to use and then we just win. But when we then get to Finland, I think we were very aware based off our experiences versus Finland, the general feel of people at the event. If we just took the mirror, maybe it's closer than what ended up actually happening, but I'm wholly convinced we couldn't win it. I'm so confident that if we took a Sig v Sig mirror, that we end up losing 0-3 as well, maybe just less than an embarrassing 0-3. So the decision that we made with 2 days to go is that no way for us to play dive because we just don't feel confident on it. We can't mirror, so we have to crack something down. So we watched some of the Overwatch League playoffs and we felt like the Boston mentality, like the Boston comp in terms of this aggressive Orisa Genji style, actually isn't as bad a matchup against the Sigma as it seems on paper. In fact, when we were watching a lot of the examples, Boston could have 100% won a lot of those maps against Florida playing that comp. And we thought, let's do something where instead of just can Finland play slowly and play the cooldown battle, can I play a comp which is more aggressive and can I force Massa and Mickey G to play correctly? If I apply the pressure to them, if they succeed, then they win. But it's a different game. All of a sudden, it's not about, can we play like we're playing scrims? It's can we problem solve the UK's comp? And that was the situation that we ultimately tried to put them in. The last few days of scrims playing this Orisa comp, we had a lot of confidence. Our warm-up went amazingly. Everything that we talked about in theory was fucking perfect. JK's Orisa was brilliant. Like, actually played exactly how we wanted to play it. Everyone was super optimistic. And then we got into stage, and ultimately the fact that we didn't have enough playtime on the comp to feel truly confident showed, and then we got absolutely fucked.
Yeah, you did get blasted.
Yeah.
I feel like people sleep on that though, you know, like they don't recognize that it's like a team is almost certainly going to lose the mirror, you know, like they see people on a strange comp like JK on Orisa or something like that, and they just start flaming the coach like fucking crazy. Like, what's this guy doing playing this guy on Orisa? It's like, there's a reason for it, you know, like it's so obvious that if they play the meta, like they're just going to lose the head-to-head matchup, you know, like it's simply not going to work. And people don't recognize that like it's an attempt to problem solve and think laterally and, you know, like change the circumstances a little bit. You know, you might think that, oh, it's not the absolute optimal comp for the situation, but it's like, you know, it's probably the best shout for the players at the end of the day is the thing, you know.
I mean, yeah,
think about the alternatives and be like, yeah.
I think we spoke as a team afterwards and stuff, and I think most people were like, yeah, it was shit, but like a lot of people felt like, yeah, it was maybe like the best shot that we had. Like, I think Finland's level, I mean, listen, Korea took the mirror. Korea definitely have a better, like most roles than us, right? I don't think I'm insulting anyone by saying that, but even they ended up losing the mirror. Obviously, also the fact that the Sigma mirror started to go towards May Sim meant that Kai's like Sojin, which was basically the only reason we got through groups, we couldn't even play that if we wanted to mirror anyway. So there was almost no way. Obviously, we have like the best like May in the world or whatever, so in theory we should use that and win. But it felt like the gap in terms of they were just so far ahead on that comp that there was no way for me at least to see us winning on the mirror.
At least Kai's having fun though.
I think both things are kind of true. Whereas like, I don't think we would have won the mirror, but I also think we just played really bad as well. You know, in the same way, even if we had played the right comp, or we played dive, or we played this, if we played like how we did, we make the same type of mistakes. There's actually no comp in Overwatch we can play now would have worked out better.
Yeah.
kind of just like was no alternative for that level of play. You know, there's no hero select that can save you.
Yeah, and I think obviously this is the point where Finland get their first win, and everyone just presumes, yeah, of course, the UK are actually frauds. It turns out they're shit, and no one's quite realised Finland are about to go on probably their biggest run ever at the World Cup.
Yeah.
Do you want to broach the flame then? Put ourselves into the fire pit?
Yeah, I can see if I could cope my way around a few comments.
Can you cope your way through Reddit? So it was fair to say across most of it, the Reddit thread was not favourable to the UK. So we'll start with Quickless55, a regular Redditor. This game actually made me mad. What the fuck were Great Britain doing?
Well,
Dubs Gaming says overdosing on 2019 Paris Eternal flashbacks recently. So many teams just not putting their players on the heroes they're best at.
What I should have done was presumably find a Lucio Winston Maycom, and then we probably would have.
Winston Maycom.
Should have figured that out. Yeah, I feel like this one we've kind of already answered it with, like, I at least explained what the fuck I was doing, whether or not it was good decisions or bad decisions. Like, obviously with the Tower of Hindsight, we wasted so much time learning a comp which we didn't even have confidence to play when we were meant to play it, which is fucked. If we'd spent every single second on the Sigma comp, then we could have maybe been like competitive with these teams. But I guess I made like a bad meta read at the start in terms of maybe thinking that dive was more viable than it was, unless you had 5 specific Chinese players.
Yeah, we actually had none of those Chinese players on Team UK, actually.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
Funny Astro putting on a real 2023 gladiator of a performance.
I think that one's for you, Max.
Oh, jeez. I don't know if that's for me or for Funny Daniel himself, actually, but I do feel like it makes sense for Funny Astro to go from 2023 Gladiator to 2023 World Cup, you know? It's like a natural progression.
I actually thought Astro played well.
Losing in the Swiss round of Flashops, you know? Like, it all just makes sense, doesn't it, you know? Like, loss into loss into loss. I'm starting to see a common trend here, and it's Daniel's shit-eating grin. Like,
it's been a rough 2023 for Gator. It's been a rough 2023 for Astro.
Yeah,
some hell of a year's being put together here. But I thought he played well. If I had to pick anyone who like played well, it was Astro.
It was Kai first, then Astro. I think.
Yeah,
I actually think it was the Gladiators guys which were our best players, unfortunately.
Good in the clutch, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Kai looks so pissed. That was probably true, actually. I don't even blame him. Holy shit! What a throw by Chris. Must have seen people were calling Gator the worst coach of all time and took it to heart.
That's actually true. I saw people flaming Gator and I thought, I need to get this in my life.
In front of it, take some of the bullets.
I need to. That's it. So no, that one's actually fully accurate.
Typical.
All right. You'd think ChrisTFer would have realised by now that putting your players on their best heroes is maybe a good idea. Yeah, I can't understand what the plan was. They should have gone back to Sigma May from map 2. What the fuck was that all about, Chris?
Yeah, well, I think if you are to give me some criticism, I suppose the question becomes, like, did we stick with a comp that wasn't working for too long? The problem was, I'll say this as Cope. Using this logic, China should have not played dive against Korea for maps 2, 3, 4, and 5 because they got absolutely fucked on map 1. It's clear dive can't work against South Korea. Like, you're losing the mirror. You need to play something else, right? But China obviously didn't have an option, so they stayed dive, and they ended up actually winning on dive. So the idea that just after map 1, it was so obvious that we couldn't win, I don't necessarily fully buy into it because, all it takes is 1 or 2 fights and it can work. Obviously, after map 2, things are looking a little bit more dive, but we discussed it in the dugout and we said, do you guys want to dive on this map? And the player's like, no, we can't dive on Suvrasa. So then we say, all right, do you want to play the Sigma? And then it's like, oh, I don't know. Like, we also didn't have confidence there. So we said, okay, let's start the Orisa. If it doesn't feel good after the first point, swap onto the mirror and then see what happens, you know? So I feel like there is definitely some fair criticism in terms of the timing of what we decided to swap comp. I'm just not convinced, even if I watch the Lijiang back now, that I felt like we could have done, I really feel we could have won that map if we like just done some basic things slightly better.
Didn't you get 200 out?
Yeah,
we were like we got still some percentage, I think, on Control Center.
We
think
got
you like
smashed.
accidentally got 19% or something. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go from 200
Well,
to a couple of fixes and we got it. To be
Well, no, I
honest.
think
like,
Well,
the way it felt for me was when I look back at it, it was like Lijiang Tower. We just played like because we're playing a new comp, right? So what we kind of need to figure out when we play the new comp is does the theory take us far enough? Does it work in practice? And in Lijiang Tower, we just played so unbelievably shit and made like massive mistakes. Now we actually got no good feedback on whether the comp works or not, other than the fact that well, the comp doesn't work if you just immediately die in every fight. So then we were like, because if there was a time to go dive, it was to pick Parisio instead of Midtown, go dive, shake it up again, give Finland a new challenge to try and solve. But because we inted the first map so hard, it was like, let's give it a proper go where we don't make these big mistakes. At which point, Jamie obviously dies immediately to a double sniper thing on defense, and we're in the same situation again. But then once we get to Flashpoint, what map can we pick that is good for dive out of the Flashpoints? We're kind of stuck.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the big regret is I should have just took a dive map 2. If we lost it, then we just give another go to the Orisa. It would have made more sense to do it. Pick Parisio, dive, see what happens, and then go map 3. So I think that was the really, like, with hindsight, that was the like poor decision in terms of playing. If we were to give it two goes, we might as well give it a go on map 3 instead of map 2 because we had a really solid dive map available for us in terms of that Parisio. So yeah, I think that I can definitely accept and probably agree with some of the criticism in terms of map choices and sticking with the comp.
yeah, and I think at some point you're kind of splitting hairs too. You know, people can be like, "Oh, this didn't work strategically." It's like what people don't understand is that whether you were right or wrong in this like one decision, like you were probably absolutely fucked either way. You know, like look at Finland, look at you guys. Like you probably were not winning that Sigma mirror in a million years. You could beat Australia. You could beat
Brazil and Australia were within our wheelhouse to take down, but Finland a step too far. All right, we'll keep going because there was quite. This is not even all of them as well, so it was quite. One thing I will say is, as much when Chris wins Coach of the Year and as the assistant coach, I get 0 praise. Also, the opposite side of that coin is when shit hits the fan, all of these comments are addressed to Chris and not me. So I'm actually, for what it's worth, that's correct. It should all be directed to Chris.
No, what you need is like a really low profile head coach because like if you look back at like Gladiators last year, it was actually fucking unbelievable how like when we were succeeding, like nobody was talking about FaZe for God knows what reason, you know? Like when we were winning, it's like this Unter guy, like he's really on something, you know? Like this guy's just popping off. And then we come to the Junker Queen meta and we get shit on and I look at the comments and it's like, what the fuck is FaZe doing with this team? Really? I really did get to like have my cake and eat it too last year, where it was like anytime the team did well, people were like, yeah, look at that dickhead taking the L on camera. It must be him, right? But then when we're losing, it was like people just forgot. Like nobody remembers that it was. Yeah, it just couldn't possibly be my fault. And then like this year comes around and it was the same thing. It was like, I can't remember how many times I got flamed. Like genuinely, like I would look through the match threads and it's like, no one was ever being like, this guy's a fucking moron. I think I got added twice on Twitter by the same one follower account being like, you're a fraud. But for the most part, it was all just like, fuck FaZe. Fuck FaZe, that bald asshole. Like it was crazy. It was crazy how much blame I got to not take.
In the voting for Coach of the Year last year, did you not get as many as FaZe? Was it not like you guys were almost like neck and neck in terms of like you both got like 5% each or something? You're the only assistant coach I'd ever seen to like take votes in Coach of the Year. Like everyone else just votes for the head coach except Unter, who somehow was because the thing is, it wasn't even fan voted, right? It was from within the league. More people were voting for you than FaZe.
FaZe was just really bad at like having a profile of any sort.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
Why did Britain stick with Orisa for so long? Come on. Someone says scared of the mirror. True. Someone says, I mean, yeah, but as soon as they mirrored, they won the team fight. If GB would have done that earlier, perhaps they would have had more of a chance. Who knows? I
feel like on the mirror we won one team fight, and I'm sure we pressed 5 ults to do it. Like I feel like we had to use absolutely fucking everything, and we won a team fight.
It was D. We used every ult. We won the fight, and then we immediately lost the next fight. Yeah, so this is what Moonshock says. It's like, well, they kind of pretty much lost all the team fights after that as well, including the last one. So I think, yeah, in reality, if we had just Sig mirrored the entire series, it probably would have been just as quick.
Finland were actually the best team at the tournament in the Sigma, right? Better than Saudi in the mirror, better than Korea in the mirror.
On the Lucio version, yeah, Lucio I think 100%. Like Finland were better, and Saudi actually had to like try and pick maps around it.
Use that little tree.
Them.
Yeah.
the secondary tree actually coming up trumps for Saudi.
Genuinely won in the World Cup.
GB switching off. GV switching off a comp they dominated the whole group stage with until the last 2 points. Felt like a throw. I love ChrisTFer, but man, what was he cooking there? Yeah,
love you too, bro.
I'm not big-brained enough for whatever the fuck that was supposed to be. Kenji Orisa failed from Fight 1. It was a really bad Fight 1. 2.5 maps later, they switched to the May Sigma and looked significantly better almost immediately. An actual throw. Yeah,
you won that one fight with your back to the wall.
I mean, you could argue that winning that one fight was significantly better than what we've done before.
It was a significant improvement.
But
it's significantly better, but it's also not significantly close to enough to win a series.
Yeah. I mean, again, like you see, all these commenters just don't understand that the group stage was a complete fucking joke. Like, they don't realize that the people in groups didn't have hands. Like, half Team Australia, no offense to my boys, but it's like you load in and you look across stage at Team Australia and it's like, wait, are they wearing blindfolds? And it's like, this might be a winnable match, you know? Like, the Reddit commenters need to understand that the teams in groups didn't shoot back. So Canada, I mean, UK could have played anything and made it out of the group because the team.
We probably could have played Orisa and made it out of the group.
We could have played Orisa and made it out of the group.
Genuinely, you could have played Orisa and made it out the group. In fact, Canada played Orisa into Australia and made it out the group. So really, it didn't take much to make it out the group. So all these fucking commenters being like, "Oh my god, what was Coach ChrisTFer doing?" Like, he's just trying to win. You know, like no one gets it. Nobody gets it.
Yeah, I think also the reality is the difference between losing 0-3 really quickly on stage and losing in a close dogfight is still the same.
I saw some sentiment about, oh, it would have been closer, it would have been less embarrassing. But I hate that. I hate that sentiment. Like, I hate that. Oh, we'll just lose 3-1. I'd rather flip a coin and try and. I don't care if it's 3-0 dominant or 3-2 close. A loss is a loss. I don't get anything from it. We need to do something that gave us like a chance to win, and even though it clearly didn't, at least I felt like it did, you know.
Actually, the only thing that would have made it funnier is if you could have seen how the internal conversations we were having after our warm-up against EXO in the morning. Because we were so gassed. We were so like, there was a story Chris told me once about like KDG and Moby staying up all night. Like, Philly were in a really bad state. They had to stay up all night and to invent like a new comp and a new play style. And they did it, and they did it the next day, and it worked. And then when Chris had been cooking this all night, I remember thinking, this is Chris's KDG moment. A new comp out of nowhere. We're gonna win the World Cup. He's done it. He's gonna turn everything. And then the first fight on Lijiang Tower happens, and then suddenly everything shattered. The dream dissipates, and I'm back in the real world.
Yeah, it's like, you'll never be him. You're never going to be KDG, mate.
No. I tried.
Cheap imitation.
Will. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Speaking of other coaches you've been compared to, and this one I think you might actually quite like, Chris. So ChrisTFer, Pep Guardiola, Graham.
Classic.
Throw in by trying a brand new meta in knockouts after not using it at all in groups. Nice that he called you Pep Guardiola, though.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's probably the nicest comment so far, apart from the guy that said he loves me. I mean, yeah, the thing is, also one thing that is true, I feel like this must be the same for you, Max. You've definitely played games in officials before where you've just fucking cooked something up the night before because you had no confidence in what you've been practicing. It happens all the time in Overwatch League, I think. Like, we've done it many times on Fusion, even on London. Like, I remember when we beat Toronto earlier in the season, we cooked up one of the comps we played just the day of because we just felt like, oh, if we play our normal comp, we're just going to lose as always. So
there was that Valiant series we played where on Esperanza we were due to play Rhine.
Yeah.
We changed to the Orisa mirror literally in the 5-minute break before the match.
Yeah,
Like
and then just drew up some first fights and some retakes, and then just fight it out.
Did it.
Yeah, no, I'd say this is very common, you know? Like you almost know with certainty that you're going to lose on whatever you've been practicing or whatever you're used to, and it's like, shit, we just need to play something different right now, or we're just going to lose. We actually had the opposite on Atlanta Reign, where it was like we were so certain we were going to lose on this like Winston Reaper mirror, and then we just played Winston Reaper on the match day because what we were trying to do wasn't working at all. Like I was just pushing the team too far in the direction of the cheesy stuff, and then we just played Winston Reaper and we just beat Shock. Like we beat Smurf on Winston with Gator on Winston, like dragging his tongue along the floor, because it turned out that Edison on Reaper was just like Christ alive, you know? It was like we would scrim, and every time Massa would beat, there'd be a fucking primal in Korean Winston sending him into the sky to Ajax him one more time. But then match day comes around and Edison is just killing 4 every fight on Reaper. It's like, oh shit, he might actually be really good at that hero. Free land qual in that. But I think it goes both ways, you know. Like, there's a lot of like night before the match cooking, where it's like, shit, everything needs to change right now because whatever we were doing up until this point, it's not working, you know.
Yeah,
it's easy to have that moment of clarity, you know. Like you get to the night before, and it's like, up until that point, you can believe in the practice, right? You know, you can believe that you're growing the tree, but you get to the night before the match, and it's like, oh, the tree is a sapling. We've lost. Yeah.
You've got to present your forest to the world, and then you look outside your back window and you realize, what the fuck have I been doing these last few months?
Exactly. You get enough time to believe that you can coach people into making something work, and then you get to the moment of truth, and it's like, yeah, I'm a fraud. Let's change comp.
Oh, this one's a long one, but I think this one's a good one. So, call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever. This comment might be from JK, actually.
Good start.
But watching GBR play that absolute dogshit comp 3 maps in a row, there is no way on this earth you can tell me they actually wanted to win and progress through this game. It did not work from the very first fucking fight, never mind map. If you're going to play Genji, why would you have backbone on it and not Will? We've been playing a mix of Winston Dive, which JK can actually play, or Sigma, with literally the best main in the world throughout the entire group stage, and all of a sudden we pull this shit out. I feel bad for Australia. If we were gonna watch a team go out one trick and a fucking terrible Chank choice, at least watching Cuffle was fun on Rhine. Here's the conspiracy theory. We wanted to lose so Finland can play Saudi after the whole Cloudy drama. Honestly, it's the only thing that makes sense. Because we did not want to win this fucking game. If not a single member of Great Britain even dared to try and claim that they thought the Orisa was the best choice to win, then I'll show you a fucking stone-faced liar. They don't even look slightly upset at the post-match fist bumps. Astro looks smug. To quote Brent, someone call Esic.
Fucking Astro. Fucking Astro. So smug. I mean, these people,
they don't know that Astro, he's so used to getting fucked in the arse. He just assumes that natural expression after a loss. Like
that wasn't even his worst loss of the year.
Yeah, genuinely.
He's the worst ones. You've seen him get reverse swept.
If Astro felt the loss, he wouldn't be playing anymore. He couldn't handle it. He needs to develop a thick skin to losing. Otherwise, you know,
after the reverse sweeps to Valiant Nixel this year, Astro, of course, he looks fucking smug after losing in the World Cup.
Could have been worse.
Like, genuinely, at least that wasn't fucking Krawi on the red team.
Can hold your head high after being beaten by Vessela Sigma, I think. Not too bad. I guess the only, maybe real bit in all of this, because I'm going to stone-face tell you we were pretty confident it was our best chance of winning. But the Will not on Genji and Jamie on Genji, even though I think we'd probably all agree Will is a better Genji than Jamie.
Yeah. It was... well, the problem is we felt like Jamie had confidence to play Ana as flex support, but didn't have confidence to play BAP, whereas Will thought BAP was his best support. So that was kind of the logic behind it. And all of our BAP comps we'd been playing, Will had been on BAP for a huge part of the thing. So to switch him off BAP on Jamie onto it, which he'd never played before and never even practiced. I mean, I've won many Overwatch League games with Jamie on Genji before, you know, in the Queen meta, it was Genji and Jamie played really well. So, and the comp functions pretty similarly. So I felt like I felt like that was the correct lineup for the comp, because otherwise I think we would have had a really big problem with support, even if our Genji like potentially looked a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that my feeling was the gap between Will is better at Genji, but the gap between Will Genji and Jamie Genji is smaller than the gap between Will Bap and Jamie Bap.
Yeah.
And yeah, to be fair, I think, because even Jamie said it himself afterwards, right? Like, not his fucking day after this one. So I think there's no delusions.
All roads actually just
it went fine.
All roads lead back to JK, basically, because, you know, if you could just play Doom Genji like China did, then you would have stood a chance at the end of the day. But unfortunately, you know, Will isn't Leave, and Jamie isn't far away. Monk. There we go. Yeah, Will ain't. Yeah, Jamie ain't Monk. So, you know, there were a few pieces missing there.
Yeah. Well, the good news is none of it was my fault. Let's move on.
Yeah, good conclusion. Onwards and upwards.
So let's move on to, I guess, the elite teams. Where do you want to start out of our sort of top 4?
Have we got anyone else who's done? Yeah, so it's just the top 4. So I guess we can do Korea because they finished 4th. So yeah, I feel like Korea, if we were to do underperformance of the entire tournament, obviously USA is in with a shout, but I feel like Korea to finish 4th with this roster, I feel like they should be receiving the... I didn't read either of the Reddit threads, but I feel like Rush should be receiving the same level of flame with me. And if not, I'll keep it real. If not more. Because here's what Korea did. And obviously you scrimmed them before the tournament, so you can correct me where I'm wrong. But I feel like Korea was heavily dive tree pilled. In fact, their tree was almost exclusively dive. I think they got to the tournament, lost confidence the same way we did on dive and playing against these teams quite quickly. Did like an emergency steroids on their Sigma tree to get it up to scratch, and then made the decision to just mirror everyone. So against China, who had the biggest fucking dive tree in the world, fuck it, we'll just mirror on every map. Against Finland, who had the biggest Sigma tree in the world, fuck it, we'll just mirror every map. So they had the same idea of this double tree, but their double tree was just to fucking mirror everyone and not have to worry about it, which surely is a hot take, even if you do have the best players in the world on most positions, and even if it did almost work.
Is it kind of not a hot take on the basis that you have all the best players, though? You know, like, in theory, because in theory, if you show me that Hanbin, Chio, Fielder, Sparkle, Lip roster, well, it should be really good at that comp in theory.
I mean, I think Korea would have just been the best dive team if they had like Stalker or Proper instead of Sparkle, to be honest. Like, because in the dive mirrors, it wound up being like Echo and Tracer that was like super important, right? For like the China match.
Yeah, Sojin as well for big parts of it too.
Oh, I mean, like Lip and Shy, they were going pretty like back and forth though, right?
Yeah,
I just mean like
I think Lip got the better of it, if anything.
Yeah. So I think like overall, like Sparkle was probably like a bit of a weak link, and then like for the Sigma stuff, Harmon sucked, dude. Like Harmon was getting fucking cancer gapped by like Vestola in the Sigma mirrors. Like there was
these flushes cancelled, everything. Yeah, like it felt.
And what you said was true about like Korea's practice, where it was like they invested really heavily in the dive. And like I remember talking to Lip pre-tournament and him saying like, you know, it's going to be an honest dive mirror. Like if we go up versus China, it's just going to be like, it's going to be a dive mirror. You know, that's what we want to take. They still like, you know, they were at least considering doing something else versus the other teams, you know, that like they weren't completely written off on Sigma, even though they massively under-practiced at pre-event. But they were still willing to play it. But with China, it was like they knew from the onset, like we're just going to do an honest dive mirror, and whoever's better at it is going to win. But I think like if that's your plan going in, like you probably shouldn't have picked Sparkle for your roster in the first place, right? Like surely there was a better option there. I'm not sure if Stalker's a booster. Proper must be a booster. That's why he's
you
not
just take a
third. Proper.
I'll go on.
Yeah, I think Proper is a booster. I have no idea about Stalker. I think you're right. To be fair to Sparkle, I think he underperformed on Echo, but when the teams got into the Tracer mirror, I think he looked pretty competitive with Leave. In fact, I actually think Leave, minus the USA game, had a pretty poor tournament, considering I consider him maybe like one of, if not the best player in the world, especially like grand finals, obviously.
He threw the last 3 maps of the grand finals like fucking crazy, to be honest. Like they had it in the bag, and then it's just like, I'm going to get first pick for 3 maps straight. Like, I don't want that shit.
So yeah, I don't know. I just felt like in theory, obviously, like they maybe shouldn't be able to play these teams, mirror them, and win. But I don't know. I feel like against Finland, for sure, if you say to me, okay, on maps where we have to play handband, we'll mirror. But I'd be picking Paris here. I'd be picking, like, they picked Circuit map 5 against Finland, right? It was Korea's choice, and I'm like, fucking hell! Like, surely if you pick Route 66 and play Fearless plus Finn, you have such a better chance in terms of, like, yeah, I don't know. I felt like they played against the best teams on their specific comp and mirrored it the full way and got close. But I also think that team has to basically win every tournament it plays in, or it's an underperformance, right? Like, fourth place for that roster it's way too low for how much talent's on it.
I think with the map draft game that you described there, like that's probably like partially a problem of them. Like, you know, they basically have no experience in these matchups at all, you know? Like if they'd put some more scrim time into that and they'd actually like gotten Sigma mirrors anywhere, they would know that they could just go to route, they could play double flex, like they will win that, you know? But they were so under practiced on their double flex. I feel like I saw Finn once all tournament long. It might have been versus Canada or something. I can't really remember. But like Finn was barely playing at all.
Well, when we scrimmed Korea first, Finn never played, and I think that what they did, their dive, they started to play Finn later. They started to play Finn during the event because obviously I think China were maybe playing a little bit of Kiri, and that's what they decided was to actually, oh, we'll just play Finn on our dive maps. And obviously in the mirror, you don't want Kiri, you want Briggs, so they brought Chio back in. But I think Finn was actually playing in their dive lineup against like non-dive mirrors. But
I didn't see Finn once in any career scrim. Like he was there in spec, but they didn't put him in once in any map.
Yeah, I mean that they started to put Finn during the event. Like it was a BlizzCon decision to put Finn in because
gotcha.
It's like our second scrim with them. I think like mid-event is when we saw him.
Yeah,
like a dive lineup with Fearless and Finn, and then like the rush lineup with Hanbin and Chio. Right. I guess what's crazy is that they were actually really close to beating Finland, despite having only started playing this comp a few days ago, and Finland beat months and months.
It's one of those things, isn't it, where you say it's crazy, but if I told you 4 weeks ago, or is it crazy that Sparkle Lip Hanbin Geofielder will almost beat like Cloud Mick G? You'd have said, mate, there's nothing crazy about that, you know? It's obviously with like the power of hindsight that like this Finland team was much better than everyone gave them credit for. But I don't know, like, I don't know how much
There's a super hot take decision at the end of this Chicken Royale as well, where they're going neck and neck with the mirror, and I guess it is starting to go worse.
And they give up on it.
They go to Junker Queen.
I respect that decision, to be honest, but it only worked because, like, you know, Sauna didn't go Bastion for like 100 years.
Yeah, it worked on the attack. Then the overtime, they like didn't win a fight in the next type of rounds because like Finland just adjusted and Sauna went Bastion, and it became really easy to deal with.
But this is it. Why are we picking Circuit if we're giving up on it? Just play it the best dive. Like in London, Route 66 was the hardest map in the game. That was the single one we had the lowest win rate on to play any sort of brawl comp versus dive. I think they could have had it, you know. I mean, maybe it was the third place playoff, so it's like, at that stage, you know, fuck it. And the China game was the one where they had to do it. But even then, the China game, I'm looking at it, think, shouldn't we pick some sort of like Savras when we should play that, like the maps where it's really hard to make dive work? But I guess, I mean, listen, if you have that roster and you say we should just mirror teams and just mechanic them, yeah, I guess it doesn't seem the craziest like take in the moment, but like with hindsight of them losing, it feels like they should use that roster's flexibility to ask teams more questions than just, can you win the matchup that you've been scrimming for the past 6 months and we haven't, you know?
Yeah, I just think that like overall Korea backed themselves a lot, you know? Like that the thing is like they see the people on the enemy team and they see themselves and they just think, you know what? Like it doesn't matter that these guys have been scrimming it. Like they trust that they're going to be good at something.
Yeah.
And then even with this pivot here at the end, you know, it's like they got like 2.5 minute time bank. Like I can totally see why you'd pivot, you know? This is literally like the Hanbin Sparkle. Like, all right, we're getting face fucked. Trust us. We're going to go on to our best heroes right now. We're just going to play a style that we're the best at and we're going to try and make it work, you know? They went for it. they get an insane push in, and then Finland adjusts and they lose. But I mean, I kind of respect it. You know, I think if they lose this match playing the mirror, that would be even more pathetic than trying to change it up on map 5 halfway through, because they got 2.5 minute time bank. Like, you might as well switch it up and go for your ultimate strength thing.
Yeah,
it's like these guys were not playing. These guys must have grown convinced throughout the tournament that they couldn't play dive into this at all, right? Like, China truly was the only team that could play dive into it, because like the difference between Fearless and Gushwei on Doom, like I think that's the number one thing, like the number one difference, where it's just like Gushwei actually crazy at Doom. Fearless not really good at Doom, you know, like he's middle, just in the middle, but Gushwei is actually like exceptional at it. So like a really, really huge difference in the impact there. And like, because Korea could never crack it and they just pivoted away, they never had the confidence to go to that dive map. And I think Korea as well, like every day that they were playing at the tournament, like you could see them growing in power, you know, like as soon as they made this pivot over to Sigma and they started playing it more, like you would talk to people and people are like, oh yeah, they're getting better. Like they're getting stronger, you know, you shit on them 5 days ago. And like 2 days later, it's like, oh yeah, you know, they're taking maps off better teams. So Korea is definitely a team where it's like, they back themselves. And like, I mean, I think it's reasonable for them to back themselves. Like, you look at the roster, like everyone is crazy. You know, I say like, oh geez, why isn't Stalker on the roster? It's like, Spark is fucking good at all these heroes, you know. Echo not great though, so it's a shame he got.
But even then, that was probably only like one map of Parisio. He really just got, it was a true Echo mirror, and he got fucked on. Maybe a bit of a cough as well. Like, it's not actually a huge part of the series.
And it's like, if Genji was super important, Genji and Sim, if those are the important heroes, Genji, Sim, Mei, like you got to be happy with having Sparkle on your team, no? Like Sparkle for proper on Stalker, on Genji, Sim, Mei, like, you know, it's not that bad.
I mean, I think in theory, the comp they have on their screen right now, I'd say, fuck yeah, this team's going to win it, you know? Especially that Dallas core with Rush as the coach. Every Brawl meta, when they were together, they were just unstoppable, right? Like Queen meta, the Winston comp at the end. Anytime it was just like Lucio, Bap, any tank, team genuinely couldn't lose. Zarya meta at the start, the Queen meta, the Winston meta, like these like brawly metas, this was the team that everybody copied.
A really Rush
just
meta,
an experience
right?
problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of a Rush meta is a Kappa concept, though, because Rush is a Kappa coach.
You think?
Yeah, I think for sure.
I got a Rush story. Have you heard it?
No, let's hear it.
Go on.
So we were in the same practice room as Korea, and I have so much respect for Rush because like I'm a Brawl guy, he's the Brawl guy.
We take so much from Dallas as well. Like season 5, we took so much from Dallas's play style.
And we were in a situation where it was like we were. This was when we were in our panic mode against Finland, where we're like, we need to maybe change comp for a few days' time. And what we thought was maybe we can start to play Sim instead of the Mei, and then maybe that can work. And Korea had just played Finland, swapped to Sim on the last map and won. So what I did was I got Tasmo to talk to Dia, who's the Dallas translator manager and also the general manager of Korea. And I said, does Rush like to discuss strategies? And so I said, can you ask him, what does he think about the Sim? Like, is it viable? And what I was expecting was some like unbelievably detailed response from the mastermind of Overwatch that was going to blow my mind. And she comes back over and she says to me, Sim is viable because you can utilize TP. And I was like,
we've not used that cooldown before.
Use TP in Sim. We were all laughing so fucking hard because we expected from the fucking godfather of Rush some 7-point detailed plan of why Sim makes more sense than Mei across certain map archetypes. And it's just use TP. So there's my Rush story for the week.
I think Rush is just like a dad coach, you know? He's just like another, not like a super game knowledge guy. He's just someone that's been like tethered to really successful players for the longest time. You know, like he was literally like Sparkle's father level of, you know, like Sparkle was like 14, 15 years old on genuinely, it's like 14, 15 years old in Element Mystic, and then like their careers are just tied together forever. You know, anywhere Sparkle goes, Rush will go, and vice versa. Like he is his coach forever. And then like, you know, when Dallas was like crazy at these comps, you know, like it's everyone on their best heroes for the longest time, like macro components too. Like when Dallas was insane, I mean, it's just like it's just having these people on their strongest heroes, so you don't need to problem solve lots of the mechanical stuff. You know, like all you need is like 1 or 2 players that are like macro minded, and then that's the frame of thinking for their improvement forever. You know, then they get someone like Rascal in for Overwatch 2, and it's like he's like a goats guy, right? You know, like he probably is huge on these fundamentals. Wasn't he on Philly Fusion as well in that previous year before he went to Dallas? So like he would have lots of KDG stuff involved. So like I'd imagine that like lots of the macro it probably comes from players, people like Rascal, stuff like that.
Well, something had to be, because you're right that Dallas was on their best heroes, but they were so good at those comps. We learned so much like macro decision making, like the way they moved, the way they used ults. Like they looked so well coached, and they played the same across multiple metas. And my assumption was that it was just Rush that did it.
Is it possible? Instead of copy it, we thought we were copying like all of Russia's ideas and trying to implement them, but we were actually just copying good players making smart decisions, and it wasn't like as much of a big structure behind it as we thought.
You never know, right? You literally never know how much like a team, like, or how much a coach does, how much it's on the assistant coach, the head coach, or whatever. But yeah, that was like them, like the way Korea. Like there was nothing that Rush. Like one thing I was thought was we only got 7 PCs in the PPAs. Rush never took a PC. He would always just like stand behind the players when they scrimmed. And I always thought that was so weird, because I'm like, if I stood behind the players during scrims, I might as well not be there. There would be no coaching done whatsoever. I won't be able to see. You know, like I would 100% insist on one of the sub players or someone not getting like a PC before me. You know, and it felt like I don't know, just the way that they did. I don't know. There's probably a reality where if you give them an extra week, they probably are the best at that mirror. If they have one more week, I think, just due to the level of the players and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It was definitely interesting to see, like the way that Korea operated and stuff.
Yeah, I honestly think they had it if they had more time, but like they just practice time really hard. Like they had the wrong read on the meta, basically. They weren't the best dive team, and then they didn't commit to being the best meta team either. So they just wasted all their time on dive. Lost the ego matchup versus China. Lost the unpracticed meta matchup versus fucking Finland. Like,
well, they're also a team that we talked about it maybe being an issue for US, but like they're actually really screwed in terms of practice, right? Because it's just them playing China, which just gives them dive mirror practice and leaves them in this weird hole.
Yeah. Also, this right here on the screen. Meta. Yeah, the fight that just showed on the screen. Yeah, like honestly, this series came down to this fight and the equivalent fight on the other side of the map. You know, like Cloud hit underneath, got like a 10-man blizzard and an old fuck fight, and got them like an extra 30 meters of push. And then here, like they read where Sparkle's position was and just pre-killed him with the ult. You know, like that alone was enough for like if Korea wins this fight, they win the next fight too, don't they? Like it doesn't Harmon have flux. I have it a little small, but
yeah, Hanbin has flux.
Yeah,
it'll be
to be honest,
Cloud will have Mayolt, but it's like a 50-50 fight for the entire series at that point.
Yeah, the new Queen came down to like the fucking thinnest of margins, really tiny margin. Like you can't tell me 1 or 2 extra days of practice, a little bit more macro understanding. You can't tell me like Korea doesn't sweep this match and then go deeper.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a world in which just certain things go wrong. Korea win the World Cup, and then we're sat like celebrating every decision. But it also does feel like, to finish 4th with this, that there has to have been some failures. And maybe it is just as simple as they effectively didn't practice until they got to BlizzCon, and then almost won the event on 2 weeks practice as it is.
I guess the real thing to makes it disappointing is you have a situation where loads of the so-called good teams underperform, like USA massively underperform. The other strongest teams are maybe Finland and Saudi Arabia, who you feel you should have better players on. China are just locked into the wrong comp for the meta. It should be a slam dunk for South Korea.
Yeah.
It ends up not being, and that's like the real missed opportunity. Should we move on to someone who did have the right read on the meta in terms of Finland? Who are probably maybe even more than Saudi the big shock of this tournament.
Yeah, I think with Saudi, I think you can make a real argument that at least like half of that roster is clearly Overwatch League level. Like I think Quartz is like clearly an Overwatch League hit scan. KSA, I think on his heroes is easily Overwatch League level. But Finland, yeah, I think very much like I think that I didn't expect much out of Cloud. I thought Massa would be super washed up. I hadn't really heard anything about Mick G. So they came in with probably one of the worst on paper rosters of the top 8, and they were excellent. They looked very well coached. Their synergy was excellent. They looked like a lot of ways they looked very similar. Watching the way that they use TPs and Maywalls, I was like, oh, this is like a mini London. The way that they're playing, it was like I was really impressed with lots of it. I think
did it maybe make you think that Sauna was, you know, slowly absorbing that information? Like he's standing in the kitchen frying up some eggs, but really he's absorbing London's macro understanding.
It's just going into the back of his head.
I considered this like, has Sauna got our VODs and is he coaching it? But I'm like, no way Sauna's doing that, man. Don't worry. Sauna is not, he was not paying attention to our VOD review.
He was chilling.
They just cracked it down.
Well, we said that when we swapped to Rissa, because we were going to play Rissa against Finland, and we were like, oh, fuck. We've spent so much time in London talking about how to play Versa Rissa. Do you think Sauna will remember? And then we thought, nah, there's no way Sauna was paying attention to that. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. That's not going to be a problem.
But no, I think they can. Obviously, they were probably very pleased with it. They probably feel a little hard done to that they didn't win the whole thing. I think that map 1 versus Saudi, I think they had some horrible overtime situations. Map 2 looked really winnable for them. Did they win map 2 or did they?
No, they went 2-0 down and then nearly reverse swept. But then
so I think it was map 2. There was some horrendous overtime throw. The biggest, like, they had 5 ults and they decided to TP into the enemy team to win a quick fight. When if they just waited for overtime and pressed Mail and Simmel on the point, it's mathematically impossible to lose it. So yeah, it was very much. They probably felt like they could have beaten Saudi. I don't know. I feel like Finland loses to China. I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like China beats Finland. So I think that maybe they were never quite winning it, but I think they had a very strong performance. I think probably like the surprise of the thing. And the sad thing is, and I'll say the same when we talk about Saudi, but this is the type of thing where if Overwatch League still existed, these are the events which all of a sudden this careers get made of performances like this, you know, like Sauna straight back in the league. I think Vestola would like certainly get unlimited trials and stuff like within the league based off this. And I think that it's a little bit of a shame, even though obviously they're probably pleased with it, that a lot of these guys' big breakout performance came a week before the league died, you know.
Yeah, I think especially for people like Vestler, who obviously had like the appearances with Paris, but never any success really, and this was really like a redemption arc for him, where he didn't just look good against like the other European Sigmas or even someone like KSA who was like good but not in the league, but like he smoked Hanbin, and most Sigmas in Overwatch League don't get to smoke Hanbin on any hero. So I think a huge performance from him. Even someone like Cloud, who's probably just been like quite a lot of middling performances in contenders, looked like probably the best May at this tournament, I think. Like, in this hard mirror, when it was May Lucio mirror, I think he got the better of UB in all of them.
No, I agree.
I want to shout out as well, actually, while we're here, the Finnish vlog. I've not watched all of it, but there's lots of moments like this where you just get real vintage Sauna. And it's not often you just get saying anything in this clip. He's just standing there with a pudding on an escalator, but it really can't be understated how sometimes when you live in like when you just live with Sauna every day, you start to take him for granted, and you don't realize that there's just moments like this that you just don't get in real life. You only get them if you live with Sauna, and you just it really makes you, gives you that perspective.
It really helps you appreciate what a very special young man he is.
It's not a lot of people like Sauna, but
yeah, but a lucky few get to experience him.
I feel blessed.
Yeah. I thought it was good seeing Massa wandering around the venue, just never a smile on his face, never looked happy to be there. just clocking in for another day at work, really.
What a swan song he's had, though. Turns up for one tournament, beats South Korea.
Yeah. I thought he was going to be the problem, to be honest. Like, I remember we scrimmed Finland, and it's like they fucked us, but it was like, geez, he was really making it possible, Like, he was just dying all the time, over and over again. Yeah, he was the lube. But you know, he turned out to be okay. Although you know, you get to that final map versus KSA, and he did turn out to be a bit problematic. But you know, it can happen. It can happen.
It can
it's
happen.
Lucio Route 66. You know, it can happen.
I think that was the fundamental problem they ran into, right? They just didn't have an answer for double flex, and as soon as Saudi started doing that, it started not to look close all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think so. I think ultimately it's like the lack of a second tree on maps where their big tree wasn't big enough. Of us saying that, I'm sure Blizzard they should be able to win it with what they've got. And I also think that the Sim May is actually quite a reasonable option against this double flex stuff. It's probably what I would have played. So, and even then, it's not like it was overtime that they lost on Route 66 as well, right? Like they did full cap the map and stuff. So,
and on their defense, I think it looked like they were going to hold second as well from memory. I could be tripping absolutely.
Yeah.
Could have been a different game, but yeah, like it was insanely close. It just, you know, the defense, like the first point defenses are really fucking hard. Like
they are. I think that's the same with all of these matches between the top four. They were all so incredibly close. Anyone could have, like, from fourth place to first, it could have been anyone in any of those positions. Really, it felt like, it felt really on. And everyone who was in that top four probably sat there like, oh fuck, we really could have won it, you know.
Yeah, not sure if we've covered it at this point, you know, but like the most lukewarm take possibly of all time was that, you know, it had to have been like one of the greatest days of competitive Overwatch ever, you know. Like it was just four back-to-back fucking hard barn burners. Like it was just insane how close every match was. And there's so much on the line too, you know, like SK China is just like the ultimate ego dive matchup forever. Then Finland Saudi is just like the Cloudy versus Yazan fucking ego matchup of all time. Like the narratives for the whole event were just fucking crazy. Like it was so good.
It's just perfect as well, right? Because you have like the dive showdown on the top of the bracket, then you have the meta showdown, the brawl showdown on the bottom side of the bracket, and then you get set up perfectly two sort of dogfights between both metas and when South Korea can adapt or not. Like, I don't think you could have written it better, except maybe UK was up there.
Maybe if one of the games was like off stream because a Blizzard guy was just yapping on stage during. The
only thing I'd change about the South Korea-China series is I really didn't hear enough about Blizzard's direction for the next year or how they're going to work.
Where was Mike Mabara? That's what I was wondering.
I'm pissed off that I got to watch Map 5. Like.
Why the fuck is this on stream right now? I don't want to see this.
Oh god, what was his? He had that mate, you know. He had a mate, and he's like quoting his in-game friend's name.
Oh, what was it like? Scooby or something? Like Skibbity?
Yeah, I don't know.
Skibbity Scooby or something?
No, not Skibbity, not Skibbity. That's something else. But it was something bad. Shout out to that guy though, for sure.
It was like such a boomer talking to children moment. Like, I also have online friends like Steezy and John. Love playing World of Warcraft with them.
Yeah. Unreal.
Bless him.
Unreal.
But I'm sure he watches the pod, so shout out to him specifically.
He does, along with Joe Biden and Uber casting all the big dogs.
So we're left now with just the finalists to talk about, and should we start with? Let's start with the bad side first, and we can finish on a positive shield for Saudi Arabia after we. I
don't agree that China is the bad side. I'd like that to be known to the audience. That the use of the word "bad" is not what I would use.
So, if you're China, you beat South Korea, and you must think, we've done it, boys. This is our year. This is finally our year to win the World Cup. We've beaten South Korea, who we always lose to. Now we just have to beat a bunch of Europeans on the other side. Well, EMEA on the other side of a bracket. This is our year, right? This is the year. And then you go 2 maps up in the grand final. And at this point, you must really be thinking, this is it, guys, and this is our year. And then it all starts to unravel.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt 3-0 when I was there. I was like, yeah, okay, I think it looks done. And then it wasn't very done. I was a little bit surprised to see them play Genji over Echo. I don't know if that's now, like, with hindsight, like a really like good take, but we on UK, when we were in dive, we fully felt Echo was like the pick, and it felt like when we were on London, Echo was like the hardest hero to deal with. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like there is. I don't know if there is an argument of like China underperformed. Because when you talk about the trees, they had more scrim time than everyone else at the tournament put together, right? Like they've been playing those 5 guys for over a year and on this comp for over a year. So their tree is about as tall as it could be, I think. And they've beaten this type of comp a lot. Like they played against Dallas in the APAC region and beat this style a lot. So I'm sure those guys would be unbelievably gutted that they weren't able to win it, because yeah, you don't know, like next year if it exists, you might just get this like Korean super team that hits the meta right and they just dominate their way through it. You have no idea if China's even going to be able to play Overwatch next year. So in terms of a chance to win it, they won't ever get a better one, I think. And yeah, I feel like they'll be extremely disappointed.
Yeah, I felt like it was honestly like they got that 2-0 up position, and it seemed really clear that like they really had all that it was going to take to win the whole thing. And then Leave was just dead every fight.
Yeah.
Like it's insane to like say Leave choked though. You know, like that doesn't. I feel like that doesn't do the KSA players justice. Maybe it's like not right to Leave as well. I'm not really sure, but it was just like he was just fucking dead every fight, dude. Like it was crazy. Like the guy was putting on an absolutely generational performance on Genji for like the entire fucking tournament. It felt like just over and over and over again. The guy was just doing unreal things on the hero, carrying so fucking hard. And then he goes up 2 maps versus Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and suddenly every fight just starts with him getting picked over and over and over and over and over again. It was crazy. Like Shy was consistent as the whole time, you know, like throughout the whole thing, Shy was doing really, really well. And then Leave's just dead. It was just a 4v5 for like a huge proportion of the final 3 maps. And it's like,
yeah,
I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, I don't know. Versus USA, Leave looked like the best player on planet Earth. Was just like unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think like against Korea, there was numerous maps where I was like, yeah, but then you're right. I think I read that the Chinese players were like, said that they like felt extremely tired because they didn't get enough food during the day and they like got exhausted during grand finals. I don't know how much truth there is to it. I felt there must be so much adrenaline at that stage that there's almost like nothing the body. I think the body can pretty much play through anything.
Yeah, I think you can play. I think you can play 2 hours of video games in one day on the grand final stage. To be honest, I do think that like it made for the best day of Overwatch viewing ever. Like I definitely wouldn't change that format in hindsight. I think having all those games on the same day actually made for like an insane day of viewing at BlizzCon. So I definitely wouldn't change it. But if you're like competitively motivated, I definitely think having semis and grand finals in the same day is always a bit shitty, to be honest. But it's equal footing for both of them, you know. Like there was a 3rd place match between them, and it was long.
They both had
they all got the opportunity.
Like
they all got the opportunity to. They all had like 5 mappers into a long rest, so it's like there's no real excuse on the tiredness front. IMO, like look at this shit, you know, like he failed the client check, bro.
I think there is like an argument that like because I watched it back, and some of Leave's like devs are really just like stupid. Like he's just peeking without deflect or peeking into everything, and then he dies, and it's like, well, what do you think was going to happen? You know, like you're just taking all these unnecessary risks. But I think there is an element of like the maps that Saudi started to win was his 3rd and 4th map when they swapped to the Lucio Sim stuff. And I think actually Yubi did a fantastic job at punishing China way more than they ever were able to do when they were on the slower comps or on the map 1 as well. So I think Yubi was actually a big difference maker. I think all of a sudden Lengsa started getting punished in so many of these fights because Lengsa was always playing like a really aggressive position to try and pocket Leave or whoever. But then all of a sudden, Lengsa started getting TP'd on and sped on. So Lengsa suddenly just started to play like more and more cuck. Like, I'm sure you remember from when we played Atlanta in London, like Chio always plays a really hard bait style. And if you never kill the Brig when he's playing a hard bait style, he's getting so much value. But there were also days where even Chio would just have a fucking 10 deffer on some of these maps because he just gets caught every time. And I think that started to shift that way for Lengsa. And maybe that contributed a little bit to Leave getting picked first because he's got less pocket in some of these situations. But a lot of them, I think, were just Leave's fault as well. But I think Saudi did make changes, and they should, like, I don't want to take credit away from Saudi. I think they still, like, they had to do a lot to bring this series back.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sim pivot was like crazy for them too. I guess to be fair, like they just kept like nanoblading into like the nanoblading into beats and shit like that, like over and over and over again, like going this big old combo. But like when you've got the beat and the sim as well, like the disengage is going to happen. Like you're spending 2 ults for 1 basically at that point. Like it's just not the move anymore. And to be honest, like the map that China needed to win, it's map 5, right? Like it's when they go back to the double flex, which is like the double flex is weaker to the dive, I'd say. Like there's more people taking risk going super wide, and that was where Leave was just like going absolutely out of control, getting picked first over and over and over again. Like there was just too much pressure for him, and it wasn't happening.
I think there was like a really big decision that Saudi needed to make in terms of, okay, we're winning on the Lucio comp, but map 5 we never scrim it. Do we pick the comp that we're winning with, or do we pick the comp that we scrim with, that we're losing on? And they elected to stay with the comp, which at the time felt it. I mean, it was a big decision either way, and obviously it worked out. But yeah, I think that that's it. Well, I really think that they stuck to their trees when required. And I think that that second little tree, even though obviously they practiced with one. The guy who got removed from the hotel, you might have heard of him. But I think that the fact that they were able to sub in Libda and still play that comp at elite level, this team was just good, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Saudi's got some absolute fucking stealth bomber players. Like the fact that they can just have a DPS player that's on the roster sub in on BAP for a bracket run to win the tournament, reverse sweep, it's insanity,
especially against
it's what you guys
they're doing it against.
Yeah, it's like what you guys were doing, except they didn't fucking come 8th.
They definitely did.
Yeah.
Is
that all the teams covered, or
that's all the 7 assistant coaches is what sealed the deal. Can't match the resources of all the Saudi coaching.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, right? If this was an Overwatch League year again, UB and Quartz would be getting offers. It'd just be a bidding war, right, for both of these guys.
I feel like if we were to do MVP of the tournament, I feel like Quartz has to get it. I think he was his Bastion was unbelievable. His Sojourn was unbelievable. I think he competed with Lip and Shy very easily this tournament. So I think him especially. He was one of the guys that had an offer last year, right, but turned it down.
With Florida,
right?
The team that won the league.
Yeah, well, that's it.
He could have had both. He could have been the only guy to do both Overwatch League and World Cup in the same year.
So yeah, I think he was unbelievable. I think everyone knows KSA on those ground brawl tanks is very, very good, and obviously being able to play those. But I also think he was brilliant. Yeah, and I think you're right. UB's May was very, very solid. And I think that across the tournament, I mean, they didn't lose in qualifiers. They didn't lose at all during BlizzCon. They're undefeated. So hard to argue against them deserving to win, really.
They won both sides of it as well, right? They won versus Dive, and they won against the best mirror team as well. So they've really ticked all the boxes, completed all the challenges.
Oh, Leave's about to do it.
Nah, he wouldn't do it, surely.
He would.
Not in an important moment like this.
It's so hard. The Winston team without ults, I think these first fights are so difficult. Overtime is so favoured towards the Sigma side here.
I think they kind of griefed. They should have just played the fearless strat, just farm nano for the fight, But instead they're all they're hiding underneath, not taking poke, they had the early space take and it went really well, and then they just sat underneath and didn't get any nano charge, they're so fucking close to actually being able to win it. Instead they just wait until you have to touch point without an ult. It's so there's no way that the Saudis would stop shooting the Winston. You would get
no, definitely. Yeah. Also, shout out to the Chinese ultras in the audience. They were so loud. There was this one stand where just the Chinese fans took it over, and it was a football game. They were louder than everyone else at the arena by far. So good one, Chinese fans.
Well, this is ultimately what, in many ways, Blizzard wanted from the Overwatch League, right? This actual domestic rivalry, but much easier with actual countries that people actually inherently root for.
Yeah, nobody gives a shit about the Houston Outlaws, ladies and gentlemen. Before we wrap up this episode, by the way, we do need to talk about Majed. You know, we've gone through an entire
Someone needs to talk about him.
Yeah, without even once talking about Majed. Like, I just remembered he was on the Saudi roster as I saw him walking on the championship stage.
What, the guy with the trophy? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it must be talked about. Like, just
That's it. I mean, yeah, an excellent tournament. I think played really well. I think because he was the Overwatch League guy, everyone knew he was good. Whereas I guess it's like the contenders guys that played at his level, which was the surprise, if anything. But no, I think there he is. Look at all happy. Had an excellent tournament
as well. Not a hero he's historically known for, really, either. And I guess we talked about USA underperforming. Majed was also part of that Toronto core and had a bad run of it, and maybe a bit more guilty in Overwatch League playoffs or play-ins rather.
Well, yeah, against us,
missing.
Yeah.
But here, I don't think he went missing in any of these series, really.
No. He knew where he was.
He wasn't lost in space looking around confused. Jeez.
Should we start introducing a regular weekly Majed segment just to keep
up
to date on all the things Majid's been up to over the last week?
Yeah, I mean, especially with the story I've seen. Hey?
I was going to say, especially with the future of Overwatch, it does feel like it would be the best thing for our career to have a Majed segment every week.
Yeah, no, actually, just the Saudi Arabian talk segment would actually go crazy for the growth of our podcast in the future. Yeah.
I just hope they've got to this part of the video and they haven't stopped watching after the cloudy section and just written hate comments and moved on. Like,
why would they have done that? Because we were condoning death threats in our
segment.
We were unbelievably
love comment.
Yeah, no, genuinely say whatever you please.
It's a free country.
The comments on a previous episode, you know, we were actually being welcomed in Saudi Arabia from memory in the comments.
That's it.
Yeah, there was one guy who was particularly keen to get us over there, so I guess we'll always have a home in Saudi Arabia.
Feels good, man.
So before we do the quiz, should we sort of orientate ourselves a little bit around where we are? Because the World Cup's finished, obviously, and normally what would happen at this time of year is it'd be like roster mania. Who's signing for who? Who's signing where? Who's getting that fat 6K paycheck? But this year, no one's getting the fat six-figure paycheck. I said 6K, didn't I? 6K is not a fat paycheck. Six-figure paycheck. No one's getting that.
I'd take 6K. Did you get paid yet?
For October, November, yes.
Yeah, I feel like I'm due. I got my termination letter, so I should have my last paycheck, but I haven't got it yet. So, Jack, if you're watching, I think I'm owed a little bit of money, but I'll let you know. Don't worry about that.
Surely Jack is watching right now. He'll chase that up with payroll in no time.
That's it. Hey, what's going on here?
Payroll always watches the podcast, so at least payroll will just be able to deal with it directly, so we should be all right.
Genuinely, like 2 hours and 15 minutes after this goes live on Spotify, you will have that money in your account. I would not be sweating.
I did like obviously a tweet because I'm getting into private coaching and stuff. Go on my Twitter if you want to do it. Unbelievable rate, by the way. I got the Jack retweet, even Cloud9 Jack.
Jack retweeted your coaching tweet?
Yeah, not my goodbye London, but my private coaching tweet. I got the Jack retweet, so he must.
Well, do you think it's an American thing where it's like, you know, in some places in America you actually get paid out of your tips? Jack's not planning to pay you your salary, but he's going to retweet your coaching thing so you can get paid out of that.
Yeah, I was thinking that's actually your final paycheck. That retweet. He's like, you can earn it now.
With hindsight, I'll take that paycheck. With
you can undo the retweet, Jack. You know, like
that's it. Just give me my money, please.
Yeah. So your roster mania is private coaching. Are we going to talk about the Flashops roster?
We should talk about what happens next, right? So there's 2 main tournaments. One in probably our favourite place in the world, Saudi Arabia, and the other online in the form of Flashops. So should we start with Flashops? Because I guess Chris probably has some more answering to do in this podcast about what happened in Flashops.
Yeah.
So I can bring up the standings.
I guess the Flashops is going on. I guess most competitive players are playing in it. Obviously, the prize pool isn't anything like massively significant, but it's better than doing nothing. So So we built ourselves a little super team, and we've managed to take this European super team to 2-2 in the Swiss stage, which is obviously which is pretty solid. Which I think means if we lose any more, we won't even qualify for the event, which would be my Gator moment, really.
Top 8 qualify, right?
I think it's maybe top. Yeah, I'm not sure actually. Maybe it's top 8. So yeah, it does look like we're gonna have to probably win the rest of these games. I think we've got a little bit unlucky because we played against XXO, who were obviously a real team, and then Hadi overslept, so we ended up getting DQ'd. And then we played yesterday against SR Peak, who presumably will be the rivals to win it. We have a big roster, but almost nobody can play the qualifiers. So I have to play like 5 of the qualifiers. I think our idea was that we should just be able to vibe our way through the Swiss stage, and then we'll start to scrim a little bit, stream the scrims, and then take the knockout seriously. Seems like maybe we're going to have to start scrimming sooner rather than later. Although our lineup for next week might be me playing 4 out of the 6 games. So we'll see what happens there. But I feel like we have enough talent on the roster to maybe get through the European Swiss stages of Flashops.
Your current vibe sits you squarely between Chessmax, Big Boy, Dino, and Rozzo.
Oh, stacked.
It took me ages to find you. I had to get to page 3 of this to get to where you guys are in the standings. So you got a hell of a way to get back to the top 8, because there's a lot of reasonable teams.
Well, I think that at least on like the Sunday, we're probably going to play against like a Team Peps or someone. Hopefully Harry's back for that game, so I don't have to play it. Otherwise, that could actually get really ropey if I'm playing, especially because it's 3 a.m. and I'm on 300 ping and I haven't played the game in 6 years. It can be ropey if I play against players with
excuses out early.
Yeah, no, genuinely, nothing but excuses already. It's insane.
So yeah, well, we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah.
I've got this exclusive picture actually from this was Astro after they lost that second Flashops game. Looking smug as always.
So smug.
This is actually the face of a guy who's just ruined his European Super Team's chances of
that's it. Astro 2023 Gladiators into 2023 Team UK into 2023 Ex-Oblivion Flashop. It's just disaster after disaster after disaster.
Good grief. Yeah. All right. So that's Flashops in Europe. And then the other big tournament that, may or may not be contributing to people's incomes in the not too distant future. Saudi E-Leagues.
Yep. And it's actually probably the most stacked Saudi E-Leagues ever.
Ever? Yeah, ever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, because once the World Cup ended, the E-Leagues realized that, there's like 8 whole teams that want to import players this time around. So the rule for this tournament is that you can have 2 imports on your roster, basically. They all have to be in Saudi to play the qualifiers. And then from the 20th through to the 2nd of December, it's like a LAN tournament, and you can have 2 imports per team, basically, or at least 2 imports starting on the roster. So I think 8 teams have imported this time around. Like if you scroll through this, you'll see like pretty top tier talent. Like you look at Falcons, they've got Shy and Spectra.
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, if you look around for F16, you'll see Overwatch League champions, someone in Merit.
Merit and someone. Yeah.
You'll see some rogue ones too. Like I can't remember the name of the team now, but Dollar Risty's in there. Elris,
it's interesting.
Iris from Shanghai Dragons is in there.
Yeah, because you'd think like all of the combo. Yeah, you think all of the imports are like the top dogs, but then there's like 1 or 2 who just clearly have a good friend who's like, there's like a few coaches and a few players who you'd think, surely this isn't like, it's like the Saudi Arabian Football League, right? It's like you've got the Saudi players and then you've got like Ronaldo and Benzema and all these like unbelievable players, but then there's like someone and Dollar next to each other and stuff. So I think that
apparently that team, they just got confused on the roster construction rules and imported 3 players instead of 2. Not sure what they're going for there.
I was going to say, I don't know how they're going to work it. Because obviously only 2 of these people can play, so you have to decide whether it's like a map where you want a good tank or not, or the map where you want
Yeah,
a
I
good
guess it's
support or
like
not.
they want a double flex roster or something, and they're going to rotate in a Saudi support, even though it looks like they have no ability to do that. Just looking at their roster, like they've got, yeah, like the only person they have two supports. I don't know. I don't know what they're cooking.
2 tanks. I think there's one with 3 supports. Landon's team has like 3 imports.
Oh yeah,
Landon
Landon's
checkmate. So I don't know if they also have a 2nd support. So I don't know what situation they're going to decide. There's no need to play checkmate, or maybe they're just going to rotate Missile and Landon. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I reckon it'll be that.
But I think realistically, it's Twisted Minds to lose, presumably. That's
especially
basically
after the World Cup, right? This team is
Saudi Arabian
just
World
an
Cup
improved
team.
Saudi Arabian team.
Yeah, with Hadi and Kellex in there. Presumably Kellex will play. And then I'm not sure if we'll see much playtime Hadi versus KSA. I think that'll be an interesting one to see what they do. I think the only other team that maybe has a chance is this Falcons, maybe, because from what I've heard, Gumba is taking it uncomprehendibly seriously. So if Gumba's cooking something, I have faith that he'll be able to make something work. And obviously, I think one obviously played the almost played in the World Cup. Didn't quite get there.
Not that much.
Yeah, it was 2 days away from playing.
Well, a couple of choice words away from playing, really.
That's it. One or two words from playing. So maybe they'll be the team to push them. Maybe F16 with someone in merit, but maybe less convinced about them. But
yeah, that ain't right no more.
That's an Uncoachable exclusive.
Yeah, that's an out-of-date Wikipedia page. The situation has changed. Don't know why you're clicking on that roster, but you know, that's he's just clicking his way through the staff section. But you know,
yeah. To be fair with the Falcons team, I do recognize. I think their tanks played like he's a contenders tank as well, right? I think.
Yeah, I think.
Like so it's actually with him and one. It's because this is what it often comes down to with these Saudi teams, right? Is everyone's able to import some pretty good players, but how good is your local talent? Because there's a much more limited pool. But
yeah,
to be fair, there is 1 billion Saudi Arabian players coming to this event. Like each team has, or each group has 7 teams.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair though, like a lot of the teams that are listed on this Wikipedia page, you'll find like some of these teams aren't even showing up for the matches. You know, like there's lots of players listed there, but like you know these are teams where they might not even necessarily have GM or top 500 players, right? Like some of the players written down here. This is just pulled straight off the site. You know, the names that registered. So it is like there is a pretty significant drop off in like the player quality after the first couple of teams. You know, maybe once you start getting below like F16 tier, like there's a pretty steep drop off in player quality.
Isn't going to be at the event.
I have a feeling about Tier 3, and it's not
okay.
Good. It's not Tier 3.
All right then.
Yeah, but I think it will be like definitely a fairly competitive event because like there's so many imported players now, and then like that middle of the pack will probably be really interesting to watch. To be honest.
Well, because it's top 2 go through from each group, right? And the way they've seeded it.
Yeah,
means
I think the groups will be boring. Yeah,
the groups will be really boring and straightforward. The top 2 teams will get out. I guess there'll be one interesting game in groups where the 2 top dogs play each other for each group. But then the main event kicks off. Is it next week? When do we run to?
Yeah, the 20th of November.
20th of November.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah. So next week is when the real thing kicks off, and that'll be actually pretty heated because it'll be top 8, and all 8 teams should be relatively legit or relatively competitive with each other.
Yeah.
Except maybe
Twisted
Minds, who should.
It definitely looks like Twisted and Falcons probably like a cut above, I'd say, just because they have like the really like the top tier Saudi talent probably on those 2 teams. F16 also, I suppose, like they've got Haku as well.
Goku and Haku as well, actually, yeah.
Yeah. So F16 is also like really quite strong, I'd say. Once you integrate the Koreans, a lot of these teams are like they're just starting to scrim right now. I think that matters a lot. You know, at least with with Falcons. Like they've been scrimming online already because Gumber is taking the event incomprehensibly seriously, as he tends to do. But a lot of these other teams, it's like they're not even scrimming yet. You know, like their import players, they're showing up to Saudi now or even later, and they haven't played on the rosters at all. Whereas, you know, Twisted Minds, obviously they've been scrimming forever. You know, they've got the power of friendship bolstering their team play, and basically everyone else is just like a pug team.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Twisted's to lose, but it'll be, if anyone beats them, it'll be Falcons. And I have no idea when or where to watch the games.
Yeah, maybe twitch.tv/Saudi E-Leagues, I want to say.
Are people going to cast it? Do you think they'll be casting for it? I don't even know if it's like, if it'll be.
I think they've got Saudi casters.
Yeah, because the thing is, I bet there is like you know the I don't know if freelance is the right word, but like when Flashops gets broadcasted, there's like a broadcast team of like producers and casters that do it. I know when we did like UK trials and stuff, I feel like that crowd will be very, very hesitant to cast the Saudi E-Leagues because of the backlash from doing it, to the point where I wouldn't surprise me if we don't get an English stream. Maybe we need to co-stream it as the...
I think this will be a good co-streaming opportunity for sure, because you know the thing about Saudi and potentially, you know, some talent not being interested in casting because of the connotations or whatever, you know, it's a good time to be a co-streamer, I'd say.
That's it. If you don't have those same moral issues, you know, then now is the time to get in on it.
Say if there was a young Finnish man and there was a choice between sending him a death threat and not sending him a death threat. If you were to be on the death threat side, maybe there's an opportunity.
This is the event to co-stream.
Well, you guys all said what you were going to be doing at the start of the broadcast, so I figure you two will be just talking heads over the event.
Presumably. I'm actually going to cast it, but I'm only going to cast in death threats. You know, that's going to be... Oh, this guy died. Well, I hope he dies.
Geez, someone's going to have to kill himself for this one.
you know, like on the Overwatch League broadcast, where we have in the stream, then it'll cut to a break, and they'll show highlights of everyone's tweets. Like, oh, I'm enjoying the game so much. I'm watching with my kids. But then instead of tweets, we just highlight our favourite death threats that people have sent in.
That would be, we do like, even on the podcast we do a Q&A segment, but it's just death threats.
We just respond to death threats.
I feel like that would actually be such an easy segment to generate too, because if you could start taking bets on comp games, on any competitive games, then immediately, like if you just live stream the DM requests of the losing team, immediately you see this string of people that lost money on the game fucking filling up the losing players' DMs.
Well, exactly. That's what happens in traditional sports, right? You're not just pissed off because Marcus Rashford missed a penalty or didn't score a big last-minute chance. It's like, well, I had a fucking 50 quid on this, Marcus. Come on.
He cost me
next week. Come on, Marcus. Fuck.
So
I think we've got all the ingredients for a non-controversial by-the-books co-stream.
That's it. We did see how long would it take before we get cancelled, and I think we're really starting to push the boat. And we'll
episode 3.
The good news is I'm unemployed, so I don't really see what source of income you're going to rob from me if you do make a Reddit thread about me. So we might be okay.
We've done an interesting thing as well, where we've gone for our most cancelable episode. At the same episode, we've introduced responding to Reddit comments flaming us. So we've really opened up a cocktail of feedback to
it's also come at the time we all desperately need jobs, you know? Like, there's no better time to make yourself unemployable than when you've got nothing to begin with.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't release this one upon hindsight.
We'll put out an edited version. It's going to be about 4.5 minutes of. Maybe we'll do the sauna bit and then we'll just cut to the quiz.
That's it. All right.
Segue to the quiz. That was.
Then we should do the quiz, and ironically, also involves sauna. So to recap. So far in the quiz, the first episode, I didn't get the answers right, The second episode, I didn't track the score. So I'm hoping as the quiz master by third time round, what is presumably quite an easy task, I'm going to have all of the answers and I'm going to attempt to track it. So we're going to do a classic format. Of course, all our loyal viewers will know how it goes. In celebration of Finland and Saudi Arabia's success, I thought what we're going to do is we're going to list every single Saudi Arabian and Finnish player that's ever played in the Overwatch League. As you can imagine, slightly more Finnish players than Saudi Arabian. But I've got a list about 15, I think, maybe just less in total. If we do get it, then we have a tiebreaker question also related, in which that we should definitely get a response. So I believe we will have a winner, and I believe the answers will be correct. Although I also believed that previously. So who wants to begin?
You got that, man.
All right, let's start nice and easy then, so we can keep the quiz going for at least more than 30 seconds before we run out of people. With KSA from KSA.
Okay.
All right,
okay.
I'm gonna do the guy we need to. You're tracking it on your fingers like manual.
That's it. Can't go wrong.
He had a system. What happens when we get more than 5 each?
Let's find out.
We're not gonna get there. He knew. Majed, because we need to talk about Majed.
Okay.
I'm so excited to find out what the system is past five all.
Oh god, I fear I'm gonna buckle here. Like
no.
Massa.
Sauna.
Zappis.
Jesus,
ooh, good one. You should have saved that one.
Bloody hell.
That was a mistake.
Like, I'm just
to use it so early, I think, but that's okay.
I'm just saying Vistola. Like I'm already tapped.
Oh, yeah, well, you said like, oh, why'd you go Zappis so early? I was like, well, it was getting pretty slim otherwise for me.
But if you went Vistola, you could have just had Zappis in one already. Like,
well, I think we have way more people on this list. We're nowhere near tapped yet.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, we have to actually travel back in time. So, actually, this is really helpful for me because so many of them are just old TF2 people. So, Taimu.
Yeah.
These is it like old Florida Mayhem players or something? Like where was Maniton from?
Sweden.
There's a lot of Swedish. There's more Swedish people on that original Florida roster than there is.
Yeah. I mean, I fear I'm already like smoked. Was Danye French?
Polish.
No, Polish.
That's unbelievable.
Okay,
That's come up twice in our first 3 episodes.
I'm just throwing shit at a map here, and it's Europe over and over again.
I feel like it should be X's go next, right? Like I feel like you shouldn't be allowed to guess until you get one.
He can just smoke me. Let's just see him exceed the fingers. I want to see what happens.
So how many am I getting? 1 guess? 2 guesses? What's for sis?
No, we'll give you 1 because we didn't clarify the rules.
Okay. If I know 1, but if I say it, it's gonna. Well, Cloudy is the obvious one, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's the comment.
I was just checking my DMs. He's top of my DMs for some reason.
They're cheating on the second monitor. I see.
Just had to send another quick death threat while we were taking a bit of downtime.
Yeah. No, I'm still no closer to another guess. You should just keep swinging.
Fuck. It's gonna be.
Do you want me to just keep going? Because I've got 3. I've got 3 in the bag, I think.
3?
Oh, yeah. Send him, mate. He's going to run out of fingers.
So, Ripper, which I should have got earlier because it's literally...
Ripper's fit! Oh, no, dude.
You also worked with Ripper, right?
Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ.
You probably made numerous jokes while working with Ripper about him just being Finnish as well, and that
just
kind
being
of
a miserable
dreary
Finn.
accent. Yeah.
Oh,
2 Gladiators legends, Big Goose and Shaz.
Yeah.
Oh God. I remember those fucking Finns. Like it's so.
And then there's got to be more.
I think we have
ones. Oh wait,
I think we have 3 more to go.
I've got 1. Fraggy.
Yeah. So then I think we have 2 more. 1 is old school, but not totally old school, and 1 is very, very old school. Like maybe only survived the first season of the Overwatch League.
Oh, jeez.
One played for Florida Mayhem, that season 1 team, and the other bounced around a few times, played for at least Boston and Dallas.
Boston and Dallas. So it couldn't have been that Chip's agent bloke.
He was Swedish.
I think he was also Swedish, yeah.
I know, they're all the same to me, dude. Like, it's just...
For purposes of a quiz, they're different races, but yeah.
But they are culturally heterogeneous. Let's clarify.
In case there was any doubt over our opinions.
Yeah, no. Boston.
We have 3 more. Actually, there's another one who maybe is the 4th most capped player of all time. I think played for at least Houston, and maybe Vancouver Titans too.
What do you mean capped?
Like appearances?
Capped means how many? Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Are we stupid?
No, the 4th most finish.
Oh, I thought you meant like all time. I was like,
no,
who?
No. All right.
And he was on Vancouver.
Yeah, that's it. Vancouver and Houston, I think.
Vancouver? Yeah. No, can't.
I feel like the clues are making it harder. Like, I feel like I'm now further away from an answer.
Is this like, is it a lie though? Like, is this clue bullshit? Like, was he even on
Vancouver? I know what I'm talking about.
No, you fucking don't.
My track record is solid.
Yeah.
Wait, is it Dia?
Yes! And then it's Sinatra. Which we have no comment about.
Our 3rd week in a row of having nothing to say about Sinatra being an answer quiz.
This is the job loss podcast, man. Yeah, I'm tapped. I'm fully tapped. Vancouver Finn.
All right.
Like
played.
I mean, they had like fucking like Car and Halo and
Wolf,
and
he played on that roster.
And they had KSA and they had
Shred
Cocked.
It's Linkser.
Linkser.
Oh my god, he was on Vancouver?
I think almost certainly was.
Yeah, for shit season. He started on Houston and then went for like a shit one on Vancouver.
What a fucking pathetic, forgettable player. Jesus.
So,
you know how Vessler had his redemption arc at this World Cup? It's fair to say Linkser did not have a redemption arc on Vancouver Titans.
So it's 10-3. I think mathematically it looks really hard to lose for X now. All right, so the flex support for Florida Mayhem season 1 begins with a Z.
Zuppe.
Zuppe, that's it. Yeah. Zuppe. And then the last one, I think, originally joined Boston and then was traded for Note, or the other way around. There was like this.
Yeah, of course. Oh my god,
the greatest Sombra to never do it, man. Holy shit.
That's it. So, and as far as I'm aware, we haven't missed anyone. If you were to guess who was the most capped Finnish player of all time, who would you have guessed?
Has to be Massa.
It is Massa on 445, but in 443, so only 2 maps less, Shaz was there. So it was actually really close. I think, I guess because season 1, there was season 1 and 2, there's so many games, and him and Big Goose played all of them, that him and Big Goose were really close to Massa in terms of overall games played. So as far as I'm aware, and the comment section, once we filter through the death threat, I'm sure will let us know.
If you want to help us out, actually, include the corrections with a death threat, so we can do it all in one.
Combo them.
Yeah.
That would help.
What other segments do we do in this podcast?
We do Client of the Week, which in this special occasion, since we were all at the World Cup for 11 whole days, there's surely got to be a client moment or two from our experiences there.
I think definitely. I don't know who was the client in Australia. I think we had a few moments. We definitely had a few moments.
Yeah,
there was a few on stage as well.
Yeah, that was true.
We had
one.
Everyone as chat over and over again.
I like that. So. That was actually an endearing quality. I quite liked when he started to call me chat. Like I thought, this is a real person, you know.
That's a real human with thoughts behind those eyes. For sure. Chat.
There was one. Will, we were at the fire pit, right? And you know the fire pit is like a coal fire in the middle, and you remember there's like a ping pong table behind it, but then there's also these Jenga blocks. And someone was saying to Will, "I'll throw some more coal on the fire." And Will instinctively just assumed that what he meant was just get a Jenga block, which is just made of
throw
wood.
the block into the fire.
Just into the fire, just instinctively at one end. And what must have gone through Will's head is, yeah, there's this coal fire, and it just gives us big blocks of wood just to add to the fire, just in case.
Just a normal, at every hotel, right? Yeah, just for same as every hotel.
It was a fucking gas-powered fire, man. Like
that's
yeah, but coal was mainly for show. It was gas that was coming out of that fire pit.
Oh, dear.
So that was a good moment. I also feel like honourable mention to JK. He could have a lot of, but I feel like when he abandoned Will in the middle of the night, I feel like that was the moment that I really respected him. Poor Will had, I guess it was COVID in the end, like most of us had. And apparently he was like getting shivers in the middle of the night, and he had a medical emergency. Apparently he woke up and he was
Finland game as well.
Yeah, day before our Finland game, and apparently he's saying, "Oh, I feel so bad. Help me, help me." Apparently he was saying, "Help me." And what Jake Oro did was he got Tasmo, came to get him sorted out, and then just went and got his own room for the rest of the night and just left Will alone in the hotel room, potentially to die. So that was a big moment of mine that I really respected. Jake Oro, and a real shout for client of the week.
My pal needs a lot of help here, but he is keeping me up as well. So I really need to get my own room so I get my own sleep, and then he can figure this all out as well. I think he said at one point when Will was shouting "help me," he was like, "Should I call an ambulance?" Because Will was like throwing up in the toilet. I was like, what was the ambulance gonna do? It'll cost you $5,000. It'll cost Will $5,000. Won't do anything other than like just lay down and get some rest.
So,
yeah, it felt like it was maybe the first time for a lot of these young gamers either drinking in excess or taking care of people who have been drinking in excess. You know, there are just some basic steps that were missing for the young lads, but you know, it can happen.
Call an ambulance, mate.
Lot of video games in their youth, so I'm not sure that you actually don't need to call an ambulance.
Doctor,
I just
please,
threw up after
I'm
a night
hungover.
of drinking. Doc, like,
what can you do for me?
But I'm sure there's more moments, but yeah, I guess I don't know. We can give it one of them.
Yeah, you know, JK. I feel like JK had the most clienty.
Yeah, on aggregate, a lot.
There's like a lot of supporting evidence around for like Will one that he might be client of the week.
He also, we saw the Orisa gameplay, you know, like there's got to be some client factor in that.
You know what actually might rival? We didn't talk about rival JK's performance on Orisa is Cow's Lucio.
Oh, true.
Yeah, yep,
Good
true.
set
Actually.
And this might not actually be a client moment for Cow. I mean, it's fair to say his Lucio was bad, but that might be the least surprising thing anyone has ever said about Cow. That his Lucio is not good. What might be the client moment is
Danny?
Friend of a podcast, Danny, choosing Chicken Royale to play an exclusively Sig Lucio mirror, and instead of putting Mateball in, who is a Lucio guy who beat Shock, right? He was on that team.
He was.
Instead of using that guy to play exclusive Lucio, have Cow do it just off the fly.
So yeah, no, I think if you're watching Danny
wins.
Honourable mention, or maybe we can let's just give it to Danny. Why not? He deserves it. So Danny, you are the client of the week. So congratulations on
back to back for Danny.
No way, did he get last week?
Collecting awards.
Yeah, for when he tried to pull that we had that story about like Rush doing the Korea thing, and then Danny tried to do like we're Team Canada.
That's it. Nice, Danny. Back to back
client of the week. It's good. Client of the week's actually being won by like one of the only people on the planet that will watch the podcast. So you know he's getting repeat value.
And he's also the only
Biden next week.
Yeah, he's the only person that watches who will also get the Brazil the Brazil Canada joke. No, most of the people, no one's going to get that, but he'll get it. So overall, this podcast is almost tailor-made for Danny.
We're really good at pandering to our audience.
Yeah.
You guys might have thought we were pandering to Saudi Arabia at parts of this podcast, but actually it was all a long-winded way of pandering to Danny.
I mean, Danny is just fucking crazy about death threats too, is the thing. So.
That's it. If you've got any death threats for Danny, get them in the comment section below.
Yep. Alrighty.
All right. So
all right.
We've covered everything. We'll be back next week, presumably at a time to be decided. We'll probably do some kind of talk about the Saudi Arabian tournament in more detail. Maybe we'll have a few more death threats from Chris about why his team's bombed out of Flashops by then as well.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that would be good. I want to hear some
guests next week. No, I think we got. Did anyone talk? I don't know. We should discuss this on the podcast. Did anyone talk to Gator?
Should we get Gator on next week?
If we can track him down, I think he might just like disappear from the internet altogether. Is the thing. But if we can track him down, he would be a great guest.
That's it. I think we spoke to Kasaurus. He's interested in coming on at some point, so we'll talk to him. I want to get Astra on so we can get a full Gladiators debrief. So we'll probably have a few episodes
/ Flashops debrief.
That's it. We can get all of the horror stories from Smug Daniel. So yeah, well, I guess at some point next week, hopefully with a guest.
Yeah. All right.
That's it. See you guys.
All right. This is sponsored by HelloFresh.
And ChrisTFer coaching. Link in the go on Twitter.
Yeah.